It's been a very hostile weekend for many of us, of course, the situation occasioned by the downpour in Accra. But of course, still, we have the grace to start a new week, and you're welcome to the AM show. My name is Pakwisi Shandov. This is the news. My name is Pakwisi Shandov. This is the news. Now, let's start off with the Kwame Nkrumah University, where researchers at the university have recorded alarming levels of antibiotics in soil and water sample at landfill sites in Kumasi in the Ashanti region. The findings established in the Journal of Chemistry revealed that concentrations of commonly used antibiotics such as penicillin in the soil and water at landfill sites are 1,000-fold higher than the acceptable limits. Medical correspondent Dr. Netta Pastram reports.
We simply asked a question: how do people in the communities dispose of unused or expired medications? Then we also went to the community pharmacists, because there are pharmacy shops as well, and we asked them the same question. If they have a stock of some particular medication and then that stock expires, for instance, what do they do to that?
The study sought to determine the levels of 3 commonly used antibiotics, metronidazole, penicillin, and amoxicillin in the soil and water found at active and inactive landfill sites in Kumasi.
So, consequent to our initial study, for the first study, as I had just described, our simple question was, what do you do to your unused or expired medications? And the majority of the people said that they put them into the trash. Once you put stuff into your trash, they find themselves into landfills or dump sites. And so we asked the question: if I take a soil sample from a dump site, or I take the leachate, the water that flows from these dump sites, if I take a water sample and I ask a simple question, how much antibiotic is present, what would I find? Interestingly, all 3 antibiotics were found in both soil and water samples from all, whether it was abandoned landfill sites or it was active. We found both penicillin, we found metronidazole, and then we found amoxicillin in those samples. The numbers were scary. According to world standards, if you find concentrations in the region of nanogram per liter, you should be scared. We found concentrations in the milligram ranges. A milligram is 1,000,000 times higher than that of a nanogram. And so these numbers are really scary. So we then asked the question: if we take bacteria from these abandoned landfill sites or these active landfill sites, if we take bacteria from there, and then we treat them with these same antibiotics that we found in that vicinity, what will be the effect? Will the antibiotics be able to kill the bacteria? Will it inhibit their growth, or will they be resistant to it? Interestingly, all the microbes that we isolated, all the bacteria that we isolated, were resistant to ampicillin. All of them were resistant to ampicillin. When we asked people how they dispose of unused medication, about 77% of the people that we interviewed said they just threw them into a trash. So just any dustbin, they just put them into it. About 77% of them just dispose them off that way. When we asked the community pharmacists the same question, more than 50% of them also said that they just dispose them through the trash. And that's scary if you think about what the consequences are on the environment.
One of the problems with how my antibiotics get into our environment is through disposal. So we are doing our disposal, doing it the right way, using the right systems to ensure that if it's medicines, they are incinerated or they are disposed in a particular way that it won't harm the environment. We are doing education like we are doing right now so that the public know. If you have a small shop somewhere, you know that please put a box in the corner, FDA would by all means be there. Put a box in the corner. You can make a list of that's the inventory I'm talking about. The number of medicines, medicine A, I have 3 of them, maybe their batch, the batch number, and probably the expiry. That's the manufacturing information. That is the manufacturing date and the expiry date. So you note all these things. When we come, we confirm the inventory and we take them. And 90% of the time, we don't need you to pay. We would ask you to pay, even if it's a small quantity, mostly when you need a distraction certificate.
The scientists attribute the unacceptable levels of antibiotics at landfill sites to the indiscriminate disposal by households and health facilities, and thus they recommend that regulations be put in place to curb this in order to avoid a public health disaster. Reporting for Joy News, Dr. Netta Pasram.
The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, and the Marine Police are searching for some workers of an oil processing plant in Tema Newtown who jumped into a lagoon to avoid lynching. Many homes and property were destroyed after a downpour in parts of Accra. Deputy Director General of NADMO in charge of operations, Abu Ramadan, says that his team is pumping water from the homes of many residents in parts of Accra as a result of the flooding.
Whilst they are evacuating water from people's homes, we are doing the assessment to look at to assess the extent properly. So I can't give you any figure for now.
Were there any casualties?
So far, no. We've not, since last night, we've not received any news of casualties. And all the men we've deployed, there was no human lives lost. It's just in one community around the Tema area, where yesterday the community people felt new a source of oil processing. Yeah, I don't want to call it a refinery, but something of that sort within the Tema Newtown area, where the community felt it is that installation that had caused the flooding within the community, and they went there, charged on the company. There was some altercation this morning. The people went back there to charge on the community again, but then shortly after, the workers from the factory, in their quest to escape for their lives, some ended up in the lagoon, and search and rescue is currently underway. Search is underway together with the NADMO, together with the Marine Police. We are conducting search currently as I'm talking to you to find those persons who could not swim out of the lagoon.
Mr. Ramadan also says that NADMO has deployed personnel to Waja and its environs to lessen the impact of flooding on residents following a spillage of the dam by the Ghana Water Company Limited.
As I'm talking to you currently, the Waja Dam is being spilled. They've opened the third gate, and they are spilling currently. Already, as a result of the heavy rains, we know the Waja enclave, the whole community, all the way to Gifit, all the way to the sea, would have issues. And as I'm talking to you, we are preparing to deploy an excavator to the beach side, so that we can open the estuary to allow fast flow of water, so that we can reduce the impact of it. And we are doing such activities to make sure that we lessen the impact of it.
The issue of female empowerment remains one of the topical matters on the train of public discourse, with many stakeholders calling for women to be brought at par with their male counterparts in all spheres of endeavor. Well, a flame of hope was lit on Saturday at the Webster University here in Ghana, where the majority of its graduates at the 9th commencement were females. Tasha Michelle was there at the ceremony and files this report. At the 2022 graduation ceremony of the Webster University here in Ghana revealed that indeed the efforts to increase the enrollment of girls is seeing a steady progress. At the event, it was all smiles for graduates, management, family, and friends of the graduates. The overall best graduating graduate student, Abigail Owusu, and the overall best graduating undergraduate student, Olivia Clesson, shared their excitement with JoyNews.
It's so awesome. I think it's such an honor, and I'm so grateful to have been nominated for the position of valedictorian.
I feel very proud, I would say, and I'm also very glad I followed my gut, telling me like, you should actually go and study in Ghana.
Speaking after the ceremony, the Chief Executive Officer of Vodafone Ghana, Patricia Obonai, stressed the need for women to be supported to realize their goals.
It's a delight to see so many women graduating today. I've always said that women are 50% of the population of Ghana. And so when you see them pursuing their careers, pursuing their education, wanting to contribute to society, I think it's phenomenal and they should be supported.
The academic director, Dr. Linda Day, also explained why there are more females graduating from the university this year.
Today, with our graduating, it might seem that we have more women than men, but I don't think that is deliberate or intentional. It's just the approach that we take in delivering the learning experience, and perhaps women take, as women we are communicators, aren't we? We are doers, and so if we're learning through doing, then no wonder we have so many graduates who are women today. But also for all our graduates, I think it's a fantastic experience for them to understand the relevance of what they are learning.
Touching on the activities of the school during the period under review, the Dean of the George Herbert Walker School of Business and Technology, Dr. Simon Cummins, noted that despite the onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic, the school's academic calendar was not disrupted.
We're already prepared to offer classes by Zoom. So we had been offering this format for the past 5 years or so, what we call our WebNet Plus format, in which we offer students the opportunity to take classes by Zoom. So when the pandemic hit, we were able to transfer all of those students over to Zoom format very, very easily, and it worked well for us.
A graduate, Joshua Fifi Asante, who also doubles as a worker, explained how he navigated the cumbersome task of combining his lessons with his economic engagements.
The Webster experience has been an amazing one, given that with graduate students, you have a lot of working class students. So combining work and academia and school has not been an easy one, but by grace, we've been able to come this far, and I'm excited about the new possibilities that a Webster education offers every Webster student.
Education, they say, is the key to success, and with more people having access to same, especially the girl child, there is no telling how far society will be transformed. Tasha Michelle, JoyNews. Now, in the National Science and Maths quiz, it was supposed to be a walk in the park for them as they attempted to redeem their battered image from the 2021 edition, where they lost to two-times regional rivals Prempeh College. This image recovery journey for Opokuwari School was almost derailed, but for a 2-point gap that separated the two-time champions from Sims SHS. For now, a spot in the semis of the regional championship is certainly secured for them.
And so this is the unmistakable Imanu's chant by the boys from Opokuwari. Well, they've had such a close shave. They were almost kicked out by Sims SHS. But for what you call experience and composure, they might have already been out of the Ashanti Regional Championship 2022. But that's just history. What's here is that they are in, and they're in the semi-finals. Opokuwari. That's cool. Opokuwari. That's cool. How are you feeling when you're entering the final round?
Yeah, it was a very good contest. It was tense because we got some wrong. So the adrenaline started coming in. When we answered the first riddle, then I got confidence that we will win because we are very good at these things. It happened to us last year against Imperial. So with experience, as you just said, we were able to overcome all these troubles. That's why we are in the next stage, the semi-finals of the region.
Opokuwari is also always a school, and as Opokuwari, as we know, we've had so many contests. This is not the first one, and they've given us a pressure. You know, once a CDS school is always a CDS school. No matter the pressure you would amount on us, we can still do. Because last year, Press did to us, but we didn't shiver. We know we are the school. And definitely there's
the likes of Prempeh College. They say they're doing a back-to-back this year. And if they also win their contest, you most likely meet them in the semi-finals like you did in the grand finale in 2021. I mean, what's the plan for Prempeh College if you meet them?
Okay, Prempeh College this year,
they are no match for us. Yeah, because they came to our home and it's like they were complaining they didn't bring their boys or something, and we gave them a margin. Like, they are no match. I don't see Prempeh as a school or something to come and start. You see, last year it was a mistake. It was a mistake. They had Aiden. Aiden has left. There is no more Aiden. They are talking of something like Ambaya or what. We also have the Romeo, the Newton, the Julius and others. So ours, we are going to win. We will win the regionals this year.
Yes, we live in a multifaceted world where different things happen differently at different times. Yes, but this year we are taking it. It is ours, Opoku School. We are taking it once and forever. Yes, we are the
Now, Bishop Herman College has also won the Volta and Uti regions after beating Mauli School and Sunrise SHS at the finals of the APSA Science and Maths Quiz Championship.
Bishop Herman College, the new champions of the Volta OT region. It is the APSA NSMQ Championship, and they've won the trophy for the first time. It wasn't like this for them last year when they took part in the competition. It was all tears for them. Today, they are celebrating, and they are the champions of the Volta and O2 regions. At the end of the contest, it was Bishop Herman College, 51 points. The second school, Sunrise Senior High School, they had 46 points. How would as the headmaster for Bishop Herman College? Let's speak to the headmaster.
Well, this is something we are proud of, because for some time now we've been trying to come into the limelight, and God willing, this year we are crowned the regional champions. We are carrying this feat to the next stage, which is the national championship. This is just the beginning. We will hit the ground running and then make sure that we excel in the national contest.
So present at this school, if I tell me what have you, prepare for us. You already equipped and
Contestants, tell me, what is the feeling like? Last year wasn't like this, right?
Yeah, last year we lost at the first contest to the regional championship, and then I felt very bad, and then this year I knew we'll bounce back, and then I'm sending a message out to our school. We've not seeded before, and then I'm telling them, I'm assuring the whole Ghana that we are going to make a mark this year, NSMQ. We are going to leave a mark.
Let's speak to all students. All students.
So it means a lot to us. You know, Bishop Herman is a big school. It's a big school. But for this particular competition, we've not been living up to expectations. So it's indeed a big win for us.
So this year we are coming to prepare for us. We are coming on the bigger stage.
Let's speak to organizers of the Volta OT APSA NSMQ Zonal Championship. I have with me here Mr. Samuel Ajo. He works with Prime Time.
I must say that right from the word go, I kept saying that when I compare this year's performance from the schools in the Volta and the two zones, as against their performance in the previous years, this year has been quite interesting. I must say it's been quite solid. When you look at the kind of points that they amassed throughout the qualifiers onto the go to the Zonal Championship, and I'm impressed with the performance at the APSA Volta and the T Zonal Championship. Yes, I want to thank you first of all. I want to thank GES, our main sponsor for the National Science and Maths Quiz, and then APSA Bank, because without their support, I'm not sure we'll be able to bring this championship to you. APSA Bank have been so instrumental in bringing the Zonal Championship to the schools in this part of the region. And so a big thank you to APSA Bank, and once again also I say thank you to JoyNews for the support, and also YFM also for the support. But I say thumbs up to APSA Bank for the support. Yeah.
Joy like a river, joy like a river, joy like a river in my soul. Joy like a river, joy like a river in my soul. Joy like a river.
That's all for this morning's edition of the news. The show continues with my colleague, Blessed Suga.
Well, thanks for staying with us here on the AM show. It's time now to check out what's happening in the newspapers today. We have a host of them with me here. We'll start off with the Ghanaian Times. Well, the Ghanaian Times today is talking about that big story. Accra floods after downpour wreaks havoc in many communities. It's captured right here on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Then the Ghanaian Times is also talking about the terrorism attack in Ghana looms. Deputy National Security Coordinator warns as he outlines measures to combat it. And then the Ghana Health Service directs health facilities to be on alert is also captured here on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Then the Daily Graphic is also here this morning talking about breaking the barrier to development. Choose STEM courses. President encourages school children. So it's also here. And then we have the story on the terrorism alert. Be vigilant to report suspicious persons. That's according to the national security to the public. And then we also have residents, shop owners count losses after downpour. It's also featured right here on the Daily Graphic. And Ghana on red alert is also featuring big time here on the Daily Guide as well. So we'll go into the details shortly, but let me welcome Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa, who's joining us for the newspaper review for today. Good morning, Suleimana.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Right, so it's a good time to start the conversation. Obviously, that what a weekend it has been, I must say. I don't know if you also experienced part of it, but we are all talking about the downpour and the flooding here in the national capital. Many have been taking us back, way back to 1960s, where, of course, there are news reportage, many of them about the downpour and flooding in Accra. So it's become a perennial problem. But really, what's your take on this issue of flooding in Accra?
Well, I think it's one of the most evident examples of the kinds of things that demonstrate the lack of leadership for our country over the years. Individuals, if allowed to do whatever they like, would do things that would often be in the interest, egocentric interests, and not in the interest of whole communities or, other people. And over the years, we've watched on as people are developing, waterways into residential areas. People are blocking areas that are supposed to hold water and developing them into either commercial apartments and other facilities. And all we hear is towards the rainy season, people warning, government promising, regional authorities indicating what they are going to do. And year on year, we keep reporting. I believe that next year by now, the newspapers and the various online portals will still be reporting flooding in Accra. I don't think that we've, over the years, taken any concrete steps towards dealing with the menace. Wherever we live, in the various communities in Accra, you will still find people, busily filling up low-lying areas that are supposed to be water-holding places to develop them into residential areas. And we look on. Sometimes as an individual, there's little you can do. The authorities look on. What you find is maybe stop work, produce permit, by this, by that. But the next time you realize people are living in that facility. So it's a very sad development, but as I said, it's a classical reflection of the lack of leadership that we've had for decades now. I think after Nkrumah, we may not have had anyone who really thinks about the future of our country and the development of our country and making sure that things are done the way they ought to be done. We keep passing laws as though passing the law is evidence of our progress and leadership. So it's a very sad development, but well, you and I may not have the absolute powers. We can keep talking about it. We can keep demanding that justice is done. But until we have the right leadership, I believe we'll continue to be confronted with this situation.
Leadership, because very often when the conversation comes up, it's mostly about civil engineering failure, and then some also point to our attitudes as well. Why then bring in leadership?
No, you see, attitude, yes, is a factor, but it all comes down to the laws being enforced properly, the right things, people being compelled to do the right things. Like I said, if individuals are allowed, they will do whatever they would want to do. If government lands are being shared among people who find themselves in government, and we are now busily talking about Achimota Forest and all the developments that we are witnessing, plus how we are seeing that people even own part of the Achimota Forest and allocating them or assigning them to their relatives in their will documents and all of that, then it would not be surprising if an individual decides that, okay, I see this land is also lying there, I'm going to fill it up and develop it into a residential facility because I'm struggling. So the individual factor is there in terms of attitudes, but it all comes down to leadership. If we all see the leader doing the right things or our leaders doing the right things, we would follow in line. As they said, the fish rocks from the head. And I believe that if we one day have a president who, would insist on doing the right things, his appointees or her appointees will follow in line. And if my DCE or my MCE is doing the right thing because the minister is doing the right thing, because the president is doing the right thing, the vice president is doing the right thing, we would all follow in line. We've seen what the regional minister has been doing over the last 2 or so years. There are people who are beginning to act in certain ways, not because they are told or not because they've been educated on having any new attitudes, but it's because they know. We have a regional minister who is trying to make sure that the rules work. Recently, we heard about Operation Clean Your Frontage. I don't think that police officers are going to be deployed all over, but people are looking at what is happening and they will follow suit. So it all comes down to leadership. I had an organization. What my colleagues in the organization would do would to a large extent depend on my own actions. If I decide to begin to do the wrong things, it will become a normal thing for others to do the wrong thing. So for me, leadership is the critical thing.
But I guess it's not entirely the case that we've not seen any action. For instance, government has announced its plan to work with the World Bank through the Garrett project, for instance, to deal with the perennial flooding issue. And now we're hearing from the experts that the major problem appears to be at the Odotobri drains and some squatters who are there. Apparently, it appears that the activities of these people is becoming a hindrance to the project. Should we target these persons and start a relocation exercise immediately?
Well, I think whatever steps that have to be taken to ensure that this whole flooding challenge that we have in the capital is dealt with must be taken up immediately. Yes, people's interests, lives will be affected, but I believe it's about a collective interest, and it is about the right thing being done. When the regional minister decided to move people from Agbogbloshie, I think there was, serious tension. People resisted, but at the end of the day, if that action was in the best interest of our city and in the best interest of the majority of the people, it ought to be done, and it was done. And eventually, the place was cleared. So again, it's about determination and leadership wanting the right thing to be done. And I mean, in the end, the public support will be there because at the end of the day, it affects all of us. So we've heard all these promises year on year. I mean, under Mahama, under Mills, under Kasoa, it happened. We heard about projects, we heard about dredging, we heard about, and still we're confronted with it.
Right.
So, we'll see any serious action. I don't think that we are making any progress.
Well, we'll move on to some other issues shortly, but very often when the conversation comes up, the president's promise of making Accra the cleaner city obviously comes to mind. Is this questioning the decision and the political statement that the president made?
Well, I think it was a very good statement to make, a very fanciful one. And I mean, if indeed it was something to be taken seriously, I believe we would have all supported it because it's a right thing to do, and I think that the actions by the regional minister are steps that could fulfill or contribute to fulfilling that promise that the president made. But I think that on the side of the president himself, I don't think that it was, since the statement was made, any serious and concrete actions have been taken from that top level to ensure that this is actually a vision that is being pursued. And so it's one of those very fine statements to make. And at the end of the day, nothing happens.
A fine statement you're calling it. But anyway, let's focus on some other issues. Security is on the agenda today. The government is clearly indicating to us that the security agencies and then the intelligence services are on alert over a possible terror attack. Well, for some experts, they saw this coming, clearly indicating that, giving the reports, numerous reports. In fact, the latest one from the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, they pointed out clearly that we're heading in for a possible terror exploitation. So giving the account that government is giving us now, what steps, in your view, do we need to take in order to deal with this?
I think it's a very, very challenging situation. It's not an easy situation to deal with. So far, we've seen significant efforts on the part of national security to alert the population. I think these alerts started coming in some weeks ago, which is quite commendable. We didn't wait to be hit before we started talking about it. And I think that it's a very, very difficult situation because it demands that the entire population of Ghana become aware of the situation. I know an event is being organized tomorrow to launch a national campaign for public awareness. I believe that it is one thing that our media can do or contribute quite significantly. And so one of the things that we should do is to also rope in the media to ensure that everybody across the country will get to know about the development and the challenge that we are faced with. This is not MPP NDC matter. It affects everyone, and particularly our brothers and sisters in the rural areas, in the border communities, particularly. They need a lot of sensitization and a lot of awareness creation. We know times are hard economically. People are struggling to survive, and therefore the temptation to be lured is quite high, but we basically have to educate people about the risks, what our neighbors are going through, Burkina, Togo, Mali, Niger, and so on, and the devastating effects that we would face should we allow these things to happen in our country.
Well, I guess it's a good move if government says we're increasing public education. In fact, the program you're talking about, we understand the Vice President together with the National Security Minister will be leading that. These are all fine intervention. But then what should the priority be for government? There are some experts who say this is the time to increase the allocation, budgetary allocation to the security services and to enhance them significantly, because we know about the police service, for instance, how they are saddled with a number of logistical challenges and all of that. These are concerns that government should be turning its attention to rather than education. What do you think about that as well?
Well, I think that public education is, for me, critical because no matter how resourced our security agencies are, there's a limit to what they can do. I don't think that any country is resourced better than the US, but we all know about 9/11 and what happened. It's about how alert the population is, how alert the security agencies are, but that is not to say that resourcing them is not critical. I think it is, but of course there will be a limit to how much we can resource them at this, particularly at this time when our economy is struggling and basically on its knees. So the minimum that can be done, or the little that can be done in terms of additional resourcing, I think has to be done. But beyond that, the most critical thing is the public education. Citizens being aware about this potential threats that we are all facing, and to that extent, all of us doing what we can do, talking to our neighbors, talking to our colleagues,
right,
on the alert.
But let's try and draw the nexus, because for some, this is not happening in a vacuum. It appears that all across the West Africa sub-region, democracy is on the decline. And this should obviously be stemming from a number of factors. You work with the Media Foundation for West Africa, so I presume that you've been identifying some of these factors. Are you able to share some of them with us?
Well, yes, these things started from Mali 2011, when the fundamentalist groups were descending from Timbuktu, from Gao, from Kidal. The French forces intervened to sort of hold them back quite a bit, but there's no way a foreign intervention can end these kinds of activities, especially when local populations are recruited. I think at that time, it would have been critical if ECOWAS had mobilized so that there would be a local, regional force to help stall the development and the descent of this group from the northern part of Mali and all of that. And then in the course of that, the security agencies in Mali thought that, well, the government of the day was not helping, so there was a coup d'etat. And then that cascaded all the way to Burkina Faso eventually. And then there was an attack in Côte d'Ivoire. And we still kept talking about it without, taking steps as a region to confront this challenge. Now, I think the democracy aspect is also an important thing. Over time, we have seen a decline in the quality of leadership in our region. And unfortunately, even countries like Ghana, that is seen as a leader, our actions and attitudes have not also contributed to helping the democratic development in our region. And I say so because I've always cited the fact that when Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire decided to amend the constitution for a third term, we looked on. And eventually people were killed, people were maimed, just so that he would go for a third term. When the elections was conducted, the opposition parties boycotted, and he won over 90% of the votes, which is quite ridiculous. Our president, as chairman of ECOWAS, was there to bless, to help with the inauguration and so on and so forth. From there, they proceeded to Guinea, where another president had amended the constitution for a third term. And the president was there for the inauguration after hundreds of people have been killed. These people were trying to demonstrate and to say, no, democracy must be preserved. So in our region, as ECOWAS, we haven't done anything to help consolidate the democratic momentum that we were building. And once we lose that momentum and people lose confidence in democratic governance, it appears anything goes. And that is what resulted in the coup d'etat in Guinea.
Right.
We've seen what has happened in Burkina Faso, and that, doesn't help in terms of the peace processes, the democratic processes, and all of that. So good governance is important, just as public education is important, beefing up security is important. But at the regional level, I think that pulling together the forces to intervene would also be the right step to take.
I guess terrorism is not the only threat to our national security now. We're also learning from the Ghanaian Times today that the Ghana Health Service is directing health facilities to be on alert over a possible outbreak of Lassa fever. That's also going across the West Africa sub-region. So it's really a terrible time for us as a sub-region, isn't it?
Well, it is. Youth unemployment, as people have said, represents one of the biggest threats to our national security. Climate crisis represents one of the biggest things to our, security and stability. We often read about the nomadic herdsmen getting into, crisis with farmer groups. We know about a conflict and crisis in Boku. Just this morning, I am reading about another communal violence in the Navarongo area, and there are, various spots of communal violence across our country, and it's not just in Ghana. These are phenomena that is all over in our region. But the reality and the truth is also that around the world, that is what is happening. We are seeing a lot of extremist activities. We are seeing right-wing politics happening. We are seeing crisis of unemployment, crisis of economic challenges. Ukraine, Russia is happening with all its ramifications. We just went past COVID and so on. So I think it's time for leaders to really show leadership. And I should say time for presidents and prime ministers to show leadership and futuristic thinking so that we are able to halt the current crisis and begin to pick up on development.
Right.
Otherwise, yes, things are not going well.
I see how passionate you are about leadership. I must admit that it's quite critical at this point because the effects of all of these troubles happening within the sub-region is really telling, even on the Ghanaian economy. For instance, the Economic Times today is reporting that FDI has declined in value by some 51% in 2021. Could that be attributed to what we're experiencing across the region?
Well, partly. But again, is for me the question of leadership. In Ghana, for example, we are going through a lot of crisis at this moment, and yet I am not seeing any significant response to demonstrate that, look, as a result of the crisis we are going through, some of which are not, are making, Russia, Ukraine, yes, it does certainly have some impact on us. COVID has had significant impact on us, and so on. But this is the time, like what happened in Cote d'Ivoire, where the president said, look, I'm cutting back my cabinet to 32 ministers. What prevents us from taking such a drastic step and saying, look, well, unfortunately, we would have to reduce our number of ministers to about 50, cut back on other spending and so on. But what are we seeing? Additional hardships being imposed on the people through levies, land grabs continuing to happen and all of that. So for me, it's the question of leadership. And let me say that talking about leadership is not just picking on the current leadership. It's been like this for, decades now.
And since you're talking about leadership, why don't we move into this? This is where the President of the Republic may perhaps disagree with you. If you look at the Publisher newspaper today, the President is featured right there talking about the fact that call me a promise keeper. That's what the President is saying. So in all of this, the President believes he's done well. And he was speaking over the weekend when he commissioned, actually cut short for the construction of the School of Engineering and Agricultural Sciences. So that's a President there for you, giving you a sharp response to the fact that, well, it's about leadership. He says, I keep my promises. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's for all of us to judge whether indeed he is a promise keeper. Of course, after 5 years of leadership, there are certain interventions that have been made. Free SHS, I believe, is not a bad policy. It has contributed to getting some people who wouldn't have been in school. But we also know about a lot of the other things that have been said that we don't really see any moves on them. One village, one dam.
I guess you're just trying to be diplomatic or modest about it, in saying that, well, you've not necessarily kept all the promises, Mr. President.
Well, I think that we've not seen the best of leadership in President Akufo-Addo. Some of us expected far better leadership than we have experienced from him. And that is also because we didn't think that President Mahama provided the kind of leadership that this country deserved. And so a lot of confidence was reposed in President Akufo-Addo. Unfortunately, I don't think that he's justified that confidence that was reposed in him. And I will find it difficult to say anywhere that President Akufo-Addo has been a better leader than President Mahama. I think that as a country, we still haven't had the best of leadership. Ghana has significant potential to become the best of countries in the world. But unfortunately, we've been doing merry-go-round from this leader to that leader.
Right.
And it's been promises and sweet talks, win power, then things go the way they have always been or worse. Then we go back after 8 years, after 4 years.
Right.
I think it's time for we, the people in this country, especially those of us who are, who can be categorized as young people, to begin to confront the issues as they are and avoid this whole thing about quest for money, where everybody wants to position themselves in order to, steal from the state, in order to grab from the state. If we continue that way, I believe that one day our country will crash. And whether you have millions or billions, we'll all be suffering. Until we do that, I don't think we'll get the kind of leadership that we deserve.
Well, I guess it's a game of taking credit. So if you're talking about both leaders, for instance, John Mahama is also captured here, still in the Ghanaian Publisher, talking about the fact that I inherited Dumso but accepted responsibility and solved it. That's what the president is telling, the former president is telling us today.
Well,
so it's about taking credits. Generally, that's what both leaders are doing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that there was a time somebody talked about mediocrity. If you are a president and you are commissioning a building, and that becomes basis for saying big things and applauding yourself, then what would the DCE say? What would the regional ministers say?
Right.
And if you're a president and there was Dumso, and it is something that ought not to have happened, and it happened, and then eventually it is fixed. Really, what about that? Why should we, after 60-something years of independence, be touting ourselves for being able to provide, electricity? Meanwhile, we're talking about a situation where there are still hundreds of communities in our country that live without electricity, that live without potable water,
right,
and basic essentials.
I wouldn't forgive myself if we don't talk about this. The NPP race, internal race, is heating up, but we're seeing some acts of violence already in the Awin area, in the western region. Some party supporters are setting party offices ablaze, and we're just at the regional level. We're expecting the national contest to also take off by July this year. So looking at what's happening, what's your expectation from the leadership of the NPP?
Well, I think that it is what our politics has become. It is not about a struggle to develop our country. It's about a struggle to become rich, to become powerful, to grab state assets. And to that extent, people would do anything to make sure that their interests is catered for.
And if you look at, so sorry for cutting through, but if you look at this report from the Republic Press, it appears that the grassroots are simply demanding for a rerun of the election there. So many of them are not really happy about how the reorganization process is taking place.
Yes, and it comes down to what I was saying, because this whole internal elections, whether in MPP or NDC, is also about whose people are winning. It's about whether Bawumia people are winning or Alan people are winning. And at the grassroots, those manipulations are taking place. And like I said, it's not really about who wins and make this country a great place. It's about who is paying how much to which delegates and what do the delegates stand to gain and all of that. Like Professor H. Prempe said on Newsfile on Saturday, we are in a situation where party cards have become powerful than national cards. And it's all about what you gain when you have a party card, what you gain when you are able to push yourself deeper into the political party. We know about people that we were in school with. Today, what they have, it takes maybe even a whole life of working and you will not get that. We are reading about the will of some people and look at what they have. What at all were they doing to be able to have that? So if that is what our politics has become, it's about shortcuts to making money, shortcut to grabbing state assets, shortcut to looting from the state. Then people will do anything to that power.
And talking about the contest, really, before we go, there's this sharp divide in the Ashanti region, the stronghold of the NPP. Chairman Wontumi is under siege right now. He says his movement is stronger than apartheid. But if you look at the Custodian newspaper, the Custodian is talking about the fact that Coca is best for Ashanti region NPP. Do you have some words for Chairman Wontumi?
Well, I think that in a real democracy, true democracy, competition is great. And it's great when the competitors are on equal footing. And I believe that is what we are seeing in the Ashanti region. Chairman Wontumi touts his wealth, talks about how much he has and all of that. He's been in power, I think, for the last 4 years, or is it 8 years? And we're hearing about Boka coming in, and I can only wish them well and hope that it will be a peaceful contest. At the end of the day, the best between them wins. And for me, it's about after the win, what happens? Contribute to the quality of our democracy, helping bring about good governance, democracy, accountability, and all of that. For me, that is what is critical. Otherwise, what is happening in Ashanti, being the stronghold of the NPP, the party in power, I think it is not too surprising.
The famous quote comes to mind right now: fear delegates, my friends. Anyway, but Suleiman Abrahima is the Executive Director for Media Foundation for West Africa. I'm grateful that you've been able to join us this morning for the news review. When we return, we'll get into our big stories. Stay with us on the JoyNews channel.
But let's come home and talk Ghana Premier League, where Kumasi Asante Kotoko is losing grounds of winning the Ghana Premier League for the first time since 2014. The Porcupine Warriors were at home and lost to 10-man Brekum Chelsea, whilst Great Olympics also lost 2-1 to their opponents, Mediama FC at the Accra Sports Stadium.
Here comes Etuga. Etuga trying to squeeze the ball in for Gama. Etuga, good save of Inseche. Is Etuga on his left foot and is out. Amankana was lurking and calling. Sapon delivers. Obin's header, good save from Danlad. Still looking for the opener. And he's got 3 goals for Kotoko this season, Lamte. It's Mudasiru's cross. Etuga's header, and Obinseche makes an amazing save to deny Kotoko the opening goal is a corner. It's very difficult reach. Etuga missing from close range. Kemfaiza equally drawing 1-1 in Karela in Aminasi. As Chelsea look to find the opening goal. Here is Kelvin Obin, and that's the opening goal. Brekum Chelsea have shocked the Asante Kotoko here at the Babaya Sports Stadium.
Yeah, the striker used his body really well. Apple should have been stronger, but what about that for a finish? That is an expertly well taken finish by Kelvin Obin.
He turns, trying to set up Infega. Now Lamte!
Oh, brilliant. Accra Great Olympics shoot themselves into the lead.
Mosi is going to stop that ball here. The moment he gets the ball, he knows where the goalkeeper is. He knows where the pole is. Curls it beautifully to the far corner.
Won the MTN FA Cup and they've represented the country. Cross comes on. That's a free chance there. Oh, what a steady build-up by goalkeeper.
And stole the ball away from Samuel Ashikwe. Then just look at the cross. Nobody there to deal with the cross. The control from Dozu, first of all, and goalkeeper shed late.
Tinga picks a spot. Easy, does it?
Look at the player here. Knows how to deal with it. Sends the goalkeeper the wrong way.
Surging forward now. Oh! Where did that come from? He's been on the field.
I mean, here, it looks like Olympus had it covered here until he cuts in onto his left here. Nobody closing in on him, and what a hit. Amazing.
Somehow on the ball.
Now let's do athletics, where Ghana won 44 medals in the Africa Under-20 and 18 Athletics Championships at the Cape Coast Sports Stadium. And we go for the highlights of those events. And this is how we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
Of the goal, it's 4 of them. Peter and Siedu, the man from the University for Development Studies in the yellow. All attention on him, but pay attention to the Senegalese. The Liberian man falling at that stage. Ghana has jumped into the lead, and we have competition coming from Marceline from Burkina Faso in second place at this moment. They continue down now, and now just about hitting the very last 100 meters of it. It's a technical sport. You need to be able to hurdle, you need to be able to sprint. It's Peter and Siedu of Ghana still in the lead in the under 20 400-meter hurdles, the very last hurdle, and he's away now at this stage. Peter and Siedu is the name, crosses the finish line, followed in second place by Burkina Faso. And off they go now into the bend, and watch out for lane 2 and 3 at this stage as they line it up nicely. And watch out for even the very last lane. There's a Ghanaian there in lane 8 at this stage. It could be a first and second for Ghana. Yes, it looks like it. And Liberia in third, one athlete falling.
Well, so very unfortunate scenes there, but it's the same script every year. Accra is now recovering from last weekend's downpour, which actually flooded most cities in the national capital. from the toll booth at Kasoa all the way to Kaneshie and talk about Tesano. In fact, every other part of the national capital was flooded over the weekend when we experienced some showers. And of course, those are the scenes that you have on your screens now. But if you're talking about the challenge, which is the perennial flooding here in Accra, it dates way back to the 1960s, yet we're not able to solve the problem. So what's really the challenge, and how do we go about solving this perennial flooding issue? Let's hear from our experts this morning. First of all, from engineer Lai Odai, who's the Greater Accra Director of the Ghana Highways. He'll be joining us. In fact, we understand that a number of road networks were equally affected as a result of last weekend's downpour. So let's speak to Emmanuel Lai Odai, who's an engineer and also the Accra Director for the Ghana Highways. Thank you, sir, for joining us. So from your office, what official reports are you receiving now about the extent of damage on some of our road networks across the capital?
Thank you very much. Currently, I'm on my way driving. However, we have numerous problems all over. On the Kasoa Road, we have some problems in Manitwin. We have other areas like our 7 area, that's the Okwasi Road, then the Godua Road, other areas. Most of the areas some have sent some pictures to me to know what exactly is happening on the road. So we have also put in some contingency measures so that some of areas could be cut off for now.
And I was just about asking you about the alternatives that you're putting in place now, knowing that some major networks will be affected.
Yes, the issue is that it's more of attitudinal. And the way we handle our drains. And then sometimes it's also due to funding. For engineers, we have solutions to most of these problems. I wouldn't say all. Well, we have natural disasters. So currently, the program, or let's say the general network plan for Greater Accra is not properly followed because of the different agencies tackling the drainage problem. You have the Western Housing doing their part. It comes to highways that we normally do the tertiary drain that goes by the roadside. And then we have individuals that also construct their own roads without consulting engineers. So it's more of attitudinal. So you can construct the road, just give it 1 year, and it will be filtered.
I'm sorry for cutting in, but the point is some Ghanaians will challenge you on that when you say it's attitudinal, particularly when we know that the Ghana Highways Authority, you're in charge of some major highways. Let's go to some of the specifics. You look at the toll booth, the Kasoa toll booth, for instance, that area, that major stretch. The belief is that you've not put in measures to actually check what we're witnessing today. How would you respond to that?
Okay, so if you look at it from that angle, it means you have not really come to the ground to ascertain what really is going on. There is some construction going on that is supposed to retain the road and then only allow the water to come in. The contractor is not really going as expected. And normally it takes a long time to give the contract. And once you give the contract, to terminate it, it's not just easy. So there is some work being done there. So it's not just like the thing not happening. It's now the basic thing that needs to be tackled, which is people building all over on the hills. We need to have a proper differential investigation about the place and to understand whether it is okay to go there or not. However, the institutions, and I don't want to put blames on others, but that is the basic truth.
Yeah, but I guess we can name them. I guess we can name them.
Yeah,
even before we name them. Yes, even before we name them, you were talking about the Kasoa toll booth, the fact that the contractor or the private developer in whose hands this project is not delivering on schedule. So the point is, why not cancel the contract, particularly when we know this would affect lives and property?
Like I'm saying, you assess a contractor, he has the capacity. When it comes to delivery, you start having problems. There is no much that you can do about it when it's at a stage. Because when you give it to another contractor, he will not do it at all. So sometimes it is a bit difficult treating those aspects when the project gets stalled. So we have measures. We know it's a perennial problem and we need to be treated once and for all. But once you try solving the problem, then that's why I put attitude now. You still developing the place the more, and then creating more problems, impounding what you already have. And that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And earlier as well, you're pointing to the fact that some individuals take it upon themselves to create networks that have not been approved by the Ghana Highways Authority.
Come in again.
Yes, you were talking about the fact that some individuals just go ahead and develop road networks without consulting you.
I'm talking about the drain. The road network is very expensive, so you hardly see people doing that.
Right.
But when it comes to drain, they do their own drain, sometimes using blocks instead of the concrete. And when you have serious rain, it collapses and then blocks the main channel. And that's the problem I'm talking about. And where we have deep development on top of the hills and climbing of the hills, when you get there, you understand the situation. They are not. You see, you need to actually engineer the whole thing before it's habited. And so if we are not engineering it and we are just doing things haphazardly, there's little that engineer who taxpayers' money has been used to trade and do. But when people listen to us, when we go consult us, and people want to work with us, the country can go forward. But where people are doing their thing, and then some of the institutions are weak, enforcement is the issue. How do we do the enforcement? So that people look at all the waterways. They are all blocked. We struck it, and you are aware that these things are going on. And I expect that the media should hammer those things so that once it is stopped, we can then put in the strategy there. We will see a whole burden on blocking the waterway. All our wet areas are now down.
Right.
And we don't know how we're going to tackle it any longer.
All right, then. Just hold on for us briefly, Engineer Emmanuel Layodai. Let's also bring in some more persons who are concerned about this. Engineer Abdullahi Mahama is a road consultant. Also joining us, we have Joshua Asamoah, who is with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. They'll be telling us about the forecast shortly. But Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, let's bring you in. How is it that we're constructing our roads and we don't necessarily take into account the issue about drainage? We've seen that on many networks across the national capital. How is that happening?
Yes, I want to say a good morning to your viewers. And a good morning to Engineer Odai. In fact, let me put on record that he's my boss. Yes. I'm proud of the senior. I've learned a lot from him. He is now the Ghana Highway Regional Director. And I say congratulations to him. He's been doing a lot. And you see, the road construction or the road network, as we are talking about there, before we do any road construction, the drainage is considered. there's a survey, the hydrological data of the location or the corridor. It's all factored into the design. So when you hear people say, oh, these drains are too small, these ones are too big, it's not that they are small. It has all been engineered before the design was executed. Now, I say that whenever you see a road that has been constructed and there's no flooding, and 3, 4, 5 years down the line, suddenly the road begins to flood. That's where you go and take what Engineer Odai was talking about, the attitudinal behavior or the behavioral pattern of residents within the area. But that is not, like you said, people will pick you on for using that word.
Yeah.
Why? Because Engineer Odai and myself in the field of the built environment know that there's a challenge at the local assembly. I asked a question the last time I spoke with you, that how come a road is constructed and let's say it was finished in 2018 to 2021, the road doesn't flood, and all of a sudden the road begins to flood. There could be that the channels that the runoff, I mean the outfalls of the drainage systems had been tempered with downstream by a developer. And I am saying something today that all the problems we're having in Accra, I said in 2019, when I had an interview with one of your stations in Accra, precisely like the 9th of April, I'll send a link to you after the program. And I said that we may develop or construct all the drains in Accra, we'll expand the drains, we'll do everything in Accra. But in the next, that was 3 years ago, 2019, in the next 10 years, so 3 years gone, within the 5 to 10 years, we will be overwhelmed with the volume of runoff in Accra.
Engineer Abdullahi, just hold it right there. Let's bring back Engineer Odai. Is this what you were referring to earlier? You didn't mention names, but at least someone is helping out here, indicating that the local assemblies to blame for this, the fact that they give permits for developers to put up structures on waterways.
Yeah, exactly so. We expect that they do the right thing. We should have a total plan as a country and how we are going. If we don't consult the land owners and then the estate developers and then the individual developers, and then for them to understand how whatever they are putting, the structure that they are putting in place, how it impacts on society, then we can't get anywhere. And sometimes these are the issues that we want to go down very well to people. Because what happens, we only talk more often about politics and some trivial issues, but we hardly bring the stakeholders on board for them to talk about some of these issues.
But I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about the structures. I know about the feeder roads being represented at various local assemblies. But how about your reps? Do you have reps as Ghana Highways? Do you have your reps at the local assemblies, at least to advise the various local assemblies whenever they want to issue permits?
We have the urban roads and feeder roads, some south attached to local assembly, highways and authorities, and we are independent. And we usually do the tertiary drain. But we then have the works and housing that does the primary and then the secondary drain often. So that is where the problem is. You see, whatever drains you put in place must have a discharge point. So that if we don't have that discharge point, then the water that you are throwing away goes to people's houses and all their life. And the discharge point must be properly constructed. Look at the Odotobri. Once it gets tilted, you realize that you get flooding all over the place. Once it's distorted, and then it can run. I mean, we get the Odotobri stream flowing, then you will see that this flooding will be. So it's more of we working. I mean, the system working, so that that we are all pretending, and that is where the problem is.
Right.
You want to do the thing, and then there's something blocking you, and you also stop there because you don't want to go further. Just because it will affect somebody or a friend or whatever. But we need to really go to the ground where structures. Of course, I admire the regional minister so much when he started his program. But today, look, I'm wondering if he can even continue again. Because the pressure that he will be facing for doing the right thing, he can't accommodate it. He can be attacked and all that. But we, as a nation, to agree that, look, this is the water we need to put a structure there, and therefore all drainage structure and not habitable structure. You get my point? So that we do it, if the government is not doing that. So before the onset of the drain, it is expected that all the districts should refill all the drain.
Right.
So that come the rain, you have a free flow.
All right.
But they will do some, if it's not properly done, when you go to the downstream, it's not properly done. And then you do the upstream. So when the water starts coming, it gets to the bottom of it, and then you get the back.
All right.
And that is the problem.
Engineer Odai, if you could just hold on there. Let's now focus on the Odo drains. And I guess that's when I would have to bring in Engineer Abdullahi Mahama again. Because for experts, the belief is that once you're able to deal with that drainage, then about 50% of the challenges in terms of the perennial flooding here in the national capital will be dealt with. We've seen numerous contracts giving out to various companies. I don't know of the latest one now, but the point is we never seem to go over it. Every year is silted. So what's really the challenge with the other drains?
Well, like I said, in 2019, Honorable Cecilia Amadapa, the then sanitation minister, was given 197 million Ghana cedis to his department for desilting and expansion of some of the drains within the capital. And I was famously tagged by saying that we are sinking money down the drain.
The very drains we are trying to deal with.
Yes.
All right.
And I explained by saying that, like Engineer Odai was saying, one of the honest engineers you can find on any interview you have is the man who just spoke. When you look at the Odo, let's speak from Aveno to the discharge point in the sea. I made a calculation in 2019 that they needed an average of about 6 to 9 months to desilt the Odo per the schedule I saw. Now, like you said, when it rains, we can pardon or we can accuse Ghanaians for disposing of refuse, polythene bags, and the likes that float on the surface of the water.
Right.
But emphatically, nobody dumps sand, silt in the raining water. The velocity of the water itself carries all those things along the bed of it. So if the Odo is filled with about 60% plus of the silt, you don't blame the citizenry. You blame officialdom who are neglecting an advocacy that we've been having over the years. Odo had been lined, so obviously that area will not erode any silt into it. But if you just go past the Odo towards Abofu stretch, I have sustained an education that from the Abofu stretch towards the Achimota News Station, that overhead, around the Shell filling station to the back of the new plan, ABC, towards Domi, had not been lined yet. Some of the concrete slabs, just when you are standing on top of the new bridge towards the Achimota lorry station, on your right-hand side, you see over 20 of the slabs would have collapsed for more than 6 years. From 2016, 2015, I started hammering on that. If you are desilting Dodo and the Abofu stretch towards the new plan, towards Domi, towards Brekusu, we are allowing the developers to take all the vegetation cover, and we are not actually channeling a proper drainage. The Odo will be silted after the money has been sunk for the silting.
Interesting points you're raising there, and it points to some structural defects as well. I guess it's a good time now to also listen to the sector minister, the Western Housing Minister, who's been touring some of the affected areas, including the Odo area.
Before he comes in.
Yes, just make that point before we listen to him.
Before he comes in, I am saying that if you neglect or you overlook technocrats advising you and you do the propaganda by doing the cameras, it doesn't solve the problem. I'm giving you an instance from 2019 when 197 million Ghana cedis was given to the sanitation minister, and we still have the Odo still choked. And so, upon the touring, he should listen to the engineer speaking that go beyond the Abofu stretch. The slabs that are collapsed are just about 20 number. When the slabs are collapsed, they have exposed the soil, and the speed of the water will carry the soil. And when the speed of the water reduces, there's high deposition of silt, and that's what is obvious at the Odo. Go and start tackling the issue upstream, like Engineer Odai said. Go to Domi there, go to Abofu, go to the new plan, go to Brekusu, and go to Ayimensa Peduasi stretch, which is bringing all the silt into the capital. The touring of successive ministers will not be the solution. Listen to the technocrats who are vested with the knowledge when they speak and act. They can do it in lots. Because of the quantum of money involved, start to tackle the Abofu stretch, which has collapsed over the past 7-8 years, so to speak, which was constructed by Interbetin. After the next maybe 3-6 months, or you have more money, go toward the new plan stretch and start to line the drain. You cannot keep on touring and be desilting the Odo when the source of the problem is not being tackled. When developers are allowed to continue to take all the vegetation cover around the Brekusu stretch, which is upstream, and then when it's taken and they are doing their development for their personal gains, the exposed vegetation is being silted in Accra. The Domi and the Odo is silted because of the exposure at the top. So the minister should cut the vegetation and listen as well. And listen to people who are not minded politically, but they want the betterment of the country at heart, so that we can start to solve these problems in lots. Assuming that we want to solve these problems in, let's say, the next 10 years, let's start tackling this lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, lot 4. I spoke about that wager problem in my Twitter on 9th of March this year, that we're going to receive more debris on the Kasoa Winneba Highway more than before because of the exposure.
You predicted that. You predicted that.
Yes. You are aware. So let your viewers go to and watch at my Twitter handle at Abdullah Muhammad _Abdullah and see what I spoke about. Is it not so mind-boggling that people are talking, experts are talking, and some of the people want to stay on cameras and just make that we are sympathizers. You go and now try to sympathize with the people who have been affected. When you can start to identify the problem, segment them into lots, and start to tackle them one after the other.
Okay,
you know what? In this country?
Let's be fair to the minister. At least let's hear him out, Engineer.
And I'm saying that we have to start to stop that one of the paparazzi.
I get your point. I get how passionate you are about this.
The paparazzi is too much because I'm becoming so frustrated as an engineer who is preempting and nothing is being done about it.
That's what happens when you're an expert, but obviously political leadership must come through. Let's listen to the minister briefly.
And the other one, equally important, is the haphazard development of our communities. Whenever you are supposed to build, you have to go and request for a building permit from the district assembly. But most people don't do that. They just build anywhere they like. But it's the responsibility of the district assembly to make sure that they issue permits, and whenever permits are not issued, they should be decisive and pull down any structure. That is a daily graphic report in 1960. And they also experienced some sort of flooding at the time. That means that it's been with us for some time. And it means that we know the problem. We should know the problem, so we must take certain actions. The actions are at 3 levels: at the central government level, and that is why I've stated that the President Akufo-Addo, during his time, the last 5 years, has invested 450 million in the construction of drains alone from the national budget. We are about to start the construction under the project, which is an interministerial project involving Ministry of Western Housing, Ministry of Water and Sanitation, and the Ministry of Local Government. Series of interventions, measures are being implemented. I'm very confident that once that project is finished, it will solve the issue of flooding within the Odo channel.
It's Hassan Sobachi, who's responsible for works in housing here in the country. So, Engineer Abdullah, I'm sure that possibly someone is speaking to the minister and is finally listening to advice. We'll come to you shortly, but let me also hear from Engineer Odai on this. And also GMET, the Ghana Meteo Agency, will be joining us. They will be telling us what more to expect if the first phase of this is, in fact, drowning a whole capital. What are we to expect, and how should citizens brace themselves for the very trying times that we're heading into? So let's bring in Joshua Asamoah. He's a senior forecaster at the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Thank you, sir, for joining us. I don't seek to blame you on this, but over the weekend, you've been criticized on social media for not putting out a timely weather report that would at least warn many residents in Accra of what was about to happen. What's your take on that?
A very good morning to everyone listening to us and watching us. I think it's a bit unfair if people say we didn't warn them, because for those who follow us on social media, they probably wouldn't say these things. We have lots of WhatsApp groups where we update them daily, and then there's the Twitter handle, the Facebook handles. They all update the weather for the day, and we actually warned that there was going to be rainfall. For those who have my flood risk Accra app, they wouldn't also have a problem, because there was a warning sent to them in the form of a push notification, and also another one sent later that there's flooding possible in parts of Accra on that day. So I'm not sure they would say we didn't warn them.
So basically, you're saying that many people out there simply disregarded your warning that you gave hours before it happened.
I wouldn't say they disregarded, but I think most people are not so much interested in weather. So for those who are interested, they probably saw the messages and then took action. But for those who don't really care, it's a normal business. When they get up, they don't really care about what will happen in terms of
is that really the case? Particularly when we know that, and I'm sure that you've heard that on countless occasions, the fact that, well, when it comes to GMET or Ghana Meteo, you're not as precise as you should be, and perhaps that's why many people don't take your updates seriously.
You see, most of the time when you engage some of these people and you ask them the source of the information they get, while saying Meteo is not too accurate and all that, you end up realizing that most of the weather information they pick are actually not from Ghana Meteo. They rather go to Google, pick their weather information from there. They expect that is the information from Ghana Meteo. It's different getting the message from Ghana Meteo and picking it from Google. We don't provide weather to Google. So if you pick any weather on Google, you don't think that it's from Ghana Meteo, and because of that, numbers that our forecast is wrong. Just take the message from us directly, and you know that our forecast is quite accurate.
All right then, enough of the blame game. Let's talk about the science now. What accounted for the downpour that was witnessed over the weekend?
All right, so basically, this is the peak of the rainfall season for southern Ghana. During the onset of the rainfall season, usually the rains are quite stormy. You get because of windy conditions associated with the rains, but they don't really last for long. They are just over a shorter period of time. So around March, April, there you'll be getting those thundery and windy conditions accompanying the rainfall activities. But within some 15, 20, 30 minutes time, everything will cease. But towards May into June, that is when we get into the peak of the rainfall season. That's what we call the monsoon kind of rainfall. Around this time, the rains don't usually come with strong winds, and so they last for a longer period of time, and stagnate and pour for a longer period of time. That is basically what happened on Saturday. So the intensity of the rain itself was not as high as when we were in March, April there. But because of the duration of the rainfall, the accumulation over the period of time was quite high, and so we had these high amounts of rainfall. And just like Engineer Abdul said, most of, if you check the rainfall amounts for Greater Accra, or for most parts of the Accra, and then just for Greater Accra, you see that the amounts were not too high. But then because of runoff from some of these, the eastern region areas, all coming to us, because Accra is a low-lying area. In the end, within the 24-hour period, we realized that there's a very huge amount of rainfall, level of water, right? But to take the amount of rainfall doesn't correspond to that. So some of these things really will happen around this time. We'll get lots of rainfall happening in areas around the eastern region, and all these will be flowing into Greater Accra. So not really the amount of rainfall that will fall here, but then we'll be getting some of these flooding events around this time due to the duration of rainfall that will be happening.
So let's talk about that point, the very last point you're raising about what to expect in the coming days. What's your projection looking like?
All right, the good news for us in Greater Accra is that we don't usually get higher frequency of rainfall. So if it rains today, you can have some dry periods before another one will come. Unlike the forest zone where you can have rain successively for 5 days or even for a whole week. But for us in Greater Accra, we can have rainfall today, have some days without rainfall, and another one will come later. The only bad thing for us along the coast is that the few occasions that we get rainfall, they are usually quite heavier, and so the effects are a bit higher on us. And then because of also the geographical location and the conditions associated with us, we also tend to have the effects more than areas in the middle or the forest zone. So around this time, we should expect longer lasting rainfall activities. They will not be that frequent, unlike areas in the middle portions. But at least when it starts raining, it will last for a longer period of time before the rain will be ceased.
I guess it will be unfair just to be talking about Accra, but in terms of the national outlook as well, what's it looking like for other regions? Talk about the Ashanti, Volta, and then the northern parts of Ghana as well.
If I think I would like to share something small so that people will actually see what I'm talking about. It wouldn't be abstract, if it's possible.
Okay.
To share my screen and then show something.
Well, we can do that if only it won't take too much of a time. But then, yes, what you're about to see now is obviously what we'll be getting from GMET from time to time. They're about to project to us what the pattern will be in the coming days, and already we are hearing from the officials there that we're to expect some more rains, particularly within Accra. Joshua, if you could just project that for us so we see what the pattern would look like, not just in the Greater Accra region. And I guess it's a national outlook thing that you're about to do. So Joshua, just go ahead and show us what exactly it is that you wanted to.
I think the participant sharing is disabled. So
right, but then I'm sure that in a few minutes from now, we'll try and get that through to our viewers. But also, while we deal with that, we know that here in the Greater Accra region as well, the pattern has not been the same for almost all communities. And we must be fair as well to indicate that it's not the whole of Accra that experienced the flooding. So speaking from the expert's position, is that to suggest that some areas are immune to this whole issue of flooding?
Actually, yes, that is quite true. There are areas that are tagged as flood-prone areas within the Greater Accra region. And so some of these areas, most of the time, get flooded, unlike other parts of the region. So the conditions are not the same across. Even though the whole of Greater Accra is more like a low-lying area, there are other areas that are quite higher than other parts. So the conditions are not the same across. And so you will see different conditions within the region as you move from one location to another. That is one reason why our app actually focused on the Guan East, Guan West, around Accra Metro, those areas. Those are areas where we know are flood prone. So we focus on those areas, try to predict water levels at those particular areas. So if you are moving out, you can check the app and see the water level expected for that day around that area. And so if there's any higher water level expected there, then you want to avoid the place as much as you can.
Okay,
so
Joshua, I'm very much interested in the pattern that you're about to show us. So try and arrange that for us while I wrap up with Engineer Mahama and then Engineer Layodai as well. Let me start off with you, Engineer Layodai. Here we are. What's next for the Ghana Highways Authority? We know that at least you're putting some alternative measures. But going forward, in terms of solving this problem in a sustainable manner, what are we to expect from your outfit?
Yeah, thank you very much. Currently, some roads are going to be reconstructed. So it's been designed to take care of the drainage problem. That is as far as the road is concerned. The existing one, we are widening some of the drains. We are having some critical drainage structures, of which we currently are ongoing. But to add to what Engineer Mahama said, you know, when the source is not properly treated, it brings all the debris down. So always the source must be tackled, should be properly lined, and like I said, if we will face it over, let's say, 10 years, we can have a whole stretch done. But of course, it is capital intensive, and so that is where the problem is. But then, if as a country we all agree that, look, let's do it in place, it's going to help everybody. You know, we can put all the nice structures, but if people don't change their attitude, I'm always against open drain, covered drain because of our attitude. If we have good attitude, covered drains will be okay. But if you cover them, I'm telling you, the next year you see the whole thing still there. But once it's open, and then we can all stay, and then distill it or take the rubbish from it, then that's fine. So we have to change our attitude. We have to put in measures, make sure the enforcement agencies are working. If they don't, you see, highways, we can have our laws that say that don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But if the enforcement agencies don't come in, I cannot go and arrest anybody. Taking somebody to court will be a problem.
Yeah.
It's about the law enforcement agency. We can give one unit to act. That look, these are the people, when you have such problems, look at the filling station. They all tie their this onto the road. And eventually they discharge the water that you see them sloping their onto the road. You go there, talk to them, and you don't mind, eventually it will come. And they are creating a whole mess in the system. Some people put their stalls by the roadside and then they line it onto the road without a drain. Because at the time that we are constructing, drain might not be necessary. But once you are coming in, you come to us. We have what we call the right of way. Then we will tell you that, look, before you put in this structure, come to us. Then we will give you a design that will be fit the road. Nobody is obeying this. Right. And that is what is creating of the problem. If the laws are working, and we can get people arrested and charged for their behaviors, I believe that case will change. Otherwise, we'll continue to go round and round. Yes.
And that's what
my pain is that they tell you the amount of money that is going down the drain. You cry for the country. So we need to do something about it.
Yeah, indeed.
And I wish that sometimes what we expect you to do, come to us. Let us just give you how we function and how things are done, so that it will then help you to bring things to light on our behalf.
Definitely, that engagement will continue, and you can trust JoyNews to bring you some in-depth analysis on that. Let me wrap up with you, Engineer Mahama. If you're there, do you see an insight for this problem? Well, we're talking about it once more, but what do you see as the concluding point for all of this? Engineer Mahama, if you could unmute so we can hear the points you're making. Engineer Mahama, can you hear me? You were making a point earlier. Let's wrap up on that.
Is it about
yes, so the solution, definitely. We've heard from the minister as well. So you were saying, let's listen to the expert. He says there's an inter-ministerial role or engagements that's happening, and that would definitely solve the problem. So is that the way to go?
Yes, if it is being done, then that is one of the ways to go, because this is what we've been saying. Like Wager, Amasaman, Ebri South, and then Madina La Quantanai, and then Guan West. Because these are the receptors of the water to the capital, like the metro guy was also trying to confirm what I said earlier. Right. And have you noticed that almost every facility in Accra is being taken over by harsh concrete? Factories, warehouses, and other things, about 95% of their compounds are becoming concrete or pavement or asphalt. Yeah. For the road network, you can't do anything about it. So any road construction means that you are reducing the area of infiltration. But because of the importance of the road, nothing could be done about that. But areas where we have development, warehouses, factories, and they can only do their driveways with the pavement, but yet they do all the concrete. Government has to start to look at that place, that side again. Right. Engineer, that was talking about going to them for informations about permit, what we call applications for access. When you go from Achimota police station towards the Achimota station, there's the new filling station on the right-hand side. I can tell you that one has not gone for any permit. And the Ghana Highway doesn't have a task force. When road construction is completed and is so beautifully handed over to government, the responsibility lies on the assembly within which on which the corridor of the road passes.
Right.
So the assembly has a task force. But if what Engineer Ode was saying, if you decide to give permits to any construction along a highway and you don't seek the technical advice from the Ghana Highway Authority, that assembly should be held responsible. And for me, I want us to change the status quo where we start to address the people who are giving the permit. There's an act in Ghana, the Land Use and Special Planning Act 925 was passed in 2016. That law is powerful. It has set a whole authority, the Land Use and Special Planning Authority. They want the title authority, they should buy it. And then they should zone in, because they have their reps at the assembly who are the physical planning officers. And those people, when they disregard the zoning status of every location, this is the outcome of what we're going to get.
All right then.
And lastly, Ayimensa Mountain, Piduase Mountain, Amasaman, Brekuso. We have to take a second look at it. We have to preserve the area to save the people in
That's
Accra.
That's another sprawling danger, I guess, that you're talking about. We'll have a special time to talk about that. But for now,
I would have time to come to the studio one of these days.
Yes,
I've been tossing you up and down. I'll have time for like a whole 31 hour.
Definitely, we'll be on the lookout for that. Engineer Mahama, I'm grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us this morning. And he talked about LUPSA, the act, which obviously partly could deal with this issue. And so let's get to Parliament and check out why that law is failing us. So Webster Teta is an MP for Botiano English Amanfro. That's one of the areas that was heavily affected and impacted by last weekend's downpour and flooding. So Webster, good morning. I'm sure that you've been touring your constituency. What's the report? What's your assessment report?
Well, good morning, my brother. I mean, it's quite alarming, and it's perennial. As I speak, I mean, it's predictable what will befall the constituency anytime we have such rain. I mean, you need not to be told. I was pretty much aware, and I knew what was going to happen. It's a low-lying area. The vegetation has been destroyed, and the poor planning of the part of the constituency usually lead to this kind of flooding, and most especially the highway. I think that I've made several calls for intervention, and I think until we really look at the mountains that are destroyed and the vegetation destroyed, it washes the sun into the road and blocks the road. The underdrain, currently there's a contract for the underdrain construction to be expanded at the Atala, where we are most hard hit. The contractor came in and had to relocate the service lines over there. He had done so. We're expecting the contractor to have gone very far with the construction before this heavy rain set in. But unfortunately, I think he hasn't been able to do that to expectation. That is why we are having this new challenge.
I see.
It's quite unfortunate. And I think that this is beyond the municipal assembly. The ministry has stepped in at that place. But that's not the only place that we have this perennial flooding. And I think that it's about time that we direct heavy national attention to the place. I've spoken to the Minister for Works and Housing to supervise that work to be done faster than perhaps we thought. I've spoken to the contractor. He has enumerated some challenges he had with respect to relocation of the lines, the service lines of the place. Some residents have put up buildings in a way, and it took a long time for him to relocate the line. But I think that we need to look at our planning again. If that construction is done, I'm not too sure we won't have further flooding of the municipality and the constituency.
Right. For some of your constituents, they believe this is a very special opportunity for you to deal with this, at least at the parliamentary level, as we know that the House will reconvene in a few days from now. Are you likely to do that? Put up some question on the floor of the House.
I've drafted my statement and the urgent statement that I'm putting together Speaker's approval. Two things I'm going to do: a statement or aspect of the minister responsible for work and housing, to give timeline, and to relook at proper planning of the city of Accra and its environs. And I think that is the extent of development in the area without proper planning is the cause of all this. In fact, if you've ever been to the place and you look at the low-lying area and then how properties have been bringing up concrete structures in the waterways. In fact, the last month, the Minister for Roads was in the constituency and to assist in construction of roads and some bridges. You see where churches have been sited, and the Minister had since directed that the municipality to pull down some structures in the place. And I think the Assembly had conveyed the meeting. They are working to pull down some structures. In fact, it's terrible what we are seeing.
Right.
And the people, the culprits of all these acts, the people who first run to government to complain. But we keep telling them that, look, it's a shared responsibility. If you buy in the land, you need to do your checks, you need to go for your permit. And the assembly is ready to assist developers to tell them, you can't do this here. But most of it, I tell you, in this country, a lot of buildings don't even have permits. They finish building before they go to the assembly for regularization of their documentation. And I think that's the most unfortunate. And trust me, the municipal assembly in my municipality, last 3 months, the assembly had procured a vehicle for the planning department to be proactive and trying to stop people from putting up properties in the waterway. Not only the waterway, but there are places that are reserved, vegetation that are reserved. They are being destroyed. Those vegetations hold the water. But when the vegetations are destroyed, especially the mountains that are covered with the vegetation, if they are destroyed, what it means is that when it rains, it washes the sun and everything into the drains that have been done beneath, and it gets full, and then the spillover causes this flooding that we see. It's extremely worrisome situation, to say the least.
In the meantime, what are you doing? We know that some of your constituents have been displaced. Are you putting up some measures on your own solution just to help these persons?
are tired, and I'm quite limited in resources to say I'm taking up this challenge. The numbers we are talking about, this is the third biggest municipality in Greater Accra, with a population, almost 400,000 population in here. It is difficult for a member of parliament, but I'm calling on benevolent organizations to assist. In fact, people are due to play. As I'm speaking to you, we are counting the losses and see how we can help. We're relying on NADMO. Yes, I'm trying to place a call to NADMO just after 8:30 to place a call to NADMO to come to our aid. The NADMO director is around, the municipal chief executive. But of course, what measures can mitigate this kind of flooding that we are seeing today? But I'm still looking out for those that I can do for immediate care of medical and food. Yes, those ones we can do. But the long-term solution is to avert this perennial flooding that we experience almost every year. I think that is where the attention should be directed. Yes, you can give people food, you can give them temporary shelter. It is not the solution for the entire municipality. Businesses are being affected today. Jobs are being affected today. Well, the residents, you can support some of them with food items, shelter, through NADMO and the like. But the cost of this flooding can never be quantified and mitigated.
So, Webster, on a lighter note, I guess someone is about to lose his monthly salary just solving a problem like this.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, thank you for joining us.
You see that.
I hope you don't lose that, though. But
I've lost it long ago.
Oh,
I've lost it long ago.
You've almost lost all of your salaries on this, right?
Of course. I mean, if you're a member of parliament, I'm not too sure your 1 year salary can help solve this problem. And my colleagues know what I'm talking about. But of course, for God and country, I mean, certain situations requires that if you have to lose your salary to ensure that you put a little amount of faces of your constituents, why not?
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you. So what's the weather looking like in the next few days? Let's go back to the Ghana Meteo Agency. They have that forecast for us and also giving us some trend as to what it is that we're likely to expect. So if you could just help us there, let's go back to GMET and find out what the trend is now. Yes. Let's have the trend.
Okay, I'm trying to share the screen, but still not allowing. So let me just try and go ahead. Basically, we have the unimodal and then the bimodal rainfall distribution for the whole country. For us in southern Ghana, that's from the coastal pass to the forest zone, we get the bimodal. So there's the major rainy season and there's the minor rainy season. But for areas in the northern parts of the country, in the 5 northern regions and some parts of the transition zone, it's just a unimodal rainfall season. So they just get one rainfall period during the whole year. All right. So okay, I think I can now share.
Right. This. Okay. Let's see if we have that now. Yes, we do. So what you're showing us now, just talk to us briefly about it.
Sure. Try and put it in a presentation mode. So
okay, so what you're showing us now is the rainfall pattern. That's what you're about to tell us, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So like I was saying, we have the distribution of rainfall, the unimodal, and then the bimodal rainfall. The unimodal is just a single rainfall season within the year. And the bimodal means we have 2 rainfall seasons within the year. Unimodal is just for areas in the northern parts of the country, and then the bimodal for areas in the southern portions. I'm trying to give a bit of an understanding to why we get some of the conditions we get around which time. So there's something we call the intertropical boundary, and that is where the moist winds coming from the ocean will meet with the dry winds that are coming from the land. And so at that boundary, that is where we call the intertropical boundary. And this is what influences most of the weather activities that we get within the country. That intertropical boundary is also influenced by the position of the sun. We know that the sun is the primary source of energy for the earth. And so most of the weather activities we get here are influenced by the sun. So the position of the sun is quite important. So there's a land here, there's an ocean here. Winds are moving from the ocean. Some are also moving from the land. As you can see, the red ones are the ones from the land. The blue ones are from the ocean. And where they are convergent is where we are terming as the ITB. The position of the ITB determines the weather conditions you would experience over which area. So let's say in December, January, February, around that time, the ITB is usually very low towards the southern hemisphere. So we get winds from the ocean just affecting few areas in the southwestern portions of Ghana. The rest of the country are all affected by dry northeasterly winds. So around this time, we get the dry season, because the sun will now be in the southern hemisphere. Because of that, lower pressures will be created in the southern hemisphere. So winds are forced to move from the northern hemisphere, which is the land areas, to feed the low pressure created in the southern hemisphere, creating that dry conditions for us. But as we move towards March, April, May, we get the ITB moving inland into the country. And so moist winds will also be moving with it. We get rains around the southern parts of the country. So that's the start of the rainfall season for us in southern Ghana. When we are getting rainfall, areas in the northern portions are still getting dry conditions, hazy, dusty weather around this time. In January, June, July, August, by that time, the entire country will now be engulfed by moist winds, because the ITB would have now moved towards northern parts of Africa. So we are getting rains almost everywhere in the country. And then the sun will also have to come back. So this is just a small illustration. Let's say we start in December, we move towards March. Right. So by March, the sun will be around the equator. And so we are getting rains in southern Ghana. Then we move towards June. We move further into the inland parts of the country. And so now almost everywhere is getting rainfall. Then we move towards September. It gets back to the equator. So once it's coming back to the equator, it will give another rainfall for areas in the northern portions. But that will also start the cessation period for areas in the northern portions. So around May, June, July, they will start getting the rainfall. They will peak around August, and then it will start declining around those periods. And so within that period, from May, June, July, August, latest by October, the rain will be ceasing over the north, because the sun will now be moving from the northern hemisphere towards the southern hemisphere. And then that will also bring us another rainfall for southern Ghana. So we get 2 rainfall seasons because of the position of the sun. When it starts moving towards the north, we get a rainfall season. Then it gets to the northern portions, give them their rainfall season, and then it starts coming back towards the south again. So we also get another rainfall season. So I try to give a distribution for some of the regions. I use one for the coastal sector, one for the middle sector, and one for the northern portions. So this is for the Greater Accra region.
And just hold on briefly. If you look at this trend that we're looking at right now, we're just a few months away from the real deal, which is somewhere in June, right? So we're not even peaking yet, per the projection that we have here.
Well, so rainfall actually starts in March and then peaks around June. That is the climatology for Greater Accra.
So it's fair to conclude that the severity may go up. I mean, just judging from what we have here, you look at the trend, January, February, then it keeps rising from March, and then you peak at June. then the trend starts to fall.
Yes, it's fair to say that. The only problem with that is that there are variabilities within rainfall. Every season has its own variations, and so you probably may have the peak of the rainfall in May this year and June. So there are some small variations, but the general knowledge is that around this time, rainfall will be more frequent for us in Greater Accra than it used to be in March. We'll be getting more rainfall around this time. So we can get a peak in May or June around these areas. So May and June are very critical months for us in Greater Accra. We get more rainfall around this time.
Yeah,
like I was saying earlier, in March, when we are getting the onset of the rainfall season, the rains are quite windy, and then they last for a shorter period of time. But when we get to the peak of the rainfall season, which is May, June areas, they are not that windy, but they last for a longer period of time, just like we experienced over the weekend. The rain lasted for hours, over 5 hours of rainfall for parts of the region. So that is the condition we'll be seeing around the peak of the rainfall season. So in May, June, these are the conditions we should expect. That's when we're getting the peak of the rainfall season. And then from then, we'll start getting lesser rainfall activities towards July. So ending the end of June towards the start of July, we'll start getting the rainfall amounts depreciating. So lower rainfall days, we'll be getting lesser rainfall days around that time. That will lead us to a very short break. We call that the little dry season. For it's a local term for southern Ghana, for Ghana. We call it a little dry season. So June, July areas, we don't really get so much rainfall in the Greater Accra region. There are more dry spells within that period, unlike in May and June when the rains are quite more frequent. And then from then, we'll move on again into the minor rainfall season. That is when the sun has now come back to the southern part of the country. So we get another rainfall season again. And this peaks around October. So our rainfall season, the major rainfall season peaks in May and June, but then we get a minor one, which will also peak around September, October, before we then descend into the dry season in December.
And looking at... Right, and taking a look at this outlook, is this what the experts call the double maxima regime for Greater Accra? It appears that we have an up and down, and then it goes up somewhere around September, comes down in November. Exactly. Is that the case?
That's the case. That's what we also call a bimodal distribution of rainfall. So we get one rainfall season in April, May, June, July. Then we get a short break between, and then another rainfall season in September, October, and then November. So it's a bimodal rainfall distribution for us in Greater Accra region.
Okay, I just want to bring your attention to this. Looking at that outlook that we have, the question then is about the intensity or severity, if I should use that term, of the rainfall pattern. What projections do you have on that? Looking at what's happening in March now and going by the projections that you have, is that likely to recur in September and October? Because at September and October here on the chart, we're expecting that the rainfall pattern would at least be higher than what we used to experience or what we are experiencing now in this month of May.
Well, May looks a bit higher. May and June looks a bit higher than in September and October. But just using rainfall intensity to make some of these conclusions can be a bit indecisive.
Okay.
The reason is that if you have, let's say, 20 millimeters of rainfall in 20 minutes, that's quite heavy rainfall. But you can have 100 millimeters of rainfall within 24 hours. If you are judging these two rainfall events, you would think that the one with 100 millimeters is probably the heaviest rainfall. But it will not necessarily be the case because the period for that accumulation is quite high. Within 24 hours, you're getting 100 millimeters. But within 20 minutes, you're getting 20 millimeters. So imagine if that should continue for like 5 hours, you'll be getting over close to 200 millimeters of rainfall. So the intensity is based on the duration, the period the rainfall lasted, not just the amount of rainfall. So we may be getting higher amounts of rainfall in May and June based on our climatology, but it does not mean the intensity is higher around those periods. We can be getting very intense rainfall around September and October than we are getting in May and June. But if you take the accumulation over the period, you get higher rainfall accumulation for May, June, July than you get for September, October, and November.
Well,
so that's basically for us in Greater Accra region.
And I guess I wish we had more time, Joshua, but unfortunately we're unable to continue with the conversation. Thank you for giving us such a lucid presentation on this. Joshua, we're grateful. He's a senior forecaster at the Ghana Meteo Agency, obviously giving us the patterns. We'll get back to that conversation a little later on, but then would be live to check the effects of the flooding, especially on the highways. That's what we need to be on the lookout for. We'll do that shortly with my colleague Samuel Kojo-Brace, but of course he's also joining us with a citizen's microphone. We're putting it out there, putting that microphone to you and asking some residents in the western region who are complaining about the nature of their roads. You may be in Accra here talking about flooding, but there in the western region, they are describing the situation, and it's one of the worst in the country. So here it is. Samuel Kojo-Brace has more for you.
Good morning and welcome to the Citizen Microphone on the AM show on JoyNews. Today we are in the Western region and we've been having chats with some residents here, and they tell us that the major problem in the Western region is roads. That their roads, some of them are very terrible. So we are standing currently at one of the most very terrible roads in the Secondary Takoradi metropolis. This is the portion of the road that is linking Kojo-Krom and the Nkrofo Junction. This is a very vital road such that you cannot travel to Ivory Coast. You cannot go to Takwa, you cannot go to Axim, you cannot go to oil-rich areas, Hunter West and Zima, the Ghana Gas areas, what have you, without having to use this part of the road, unless you want to pass Secondary to avoid it. It's so critical that something needs to be done. But this has remained this way for the past 3 years, they tell me. So why aren't authorities acting, and what are the residents saying? Let's find out. Chief, good morning. I hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm well, sir.
Share with me, how's your frustration driving through this type of road?
It's too much, boss. Because it's a shop. What's a watcher? And then Yamina don't see you with their contract abado. Now, bra contractor so about so you there, she extra contract only a juma. Need to make Jaman hole out to them. Manhole or to them, nature or her. Maybe you who may be a machine or so what that you know why they know. I mean, you who the reason why up and there, Western region. I had a major road pa in so do a young road in wire. I mean, it's very terrible. Very terrible.
All right. Yeah. So there you have it. He says that he's seeing a contractor on this road, but that's what the contractor has left there, and he describes this as terrible. He doesn't know why this should happen. It doesn't speak well of the Western region. We're still here on the Citizen Microphone, still trying to engage more people to get their thought on, how bad this road is. Well, some more drivers are driving through. Let me see if I can still get some more to have their thought here. Let me try and get this man here to share his thought with us. Chief, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
How's your frustration driving through this portion of the road?
It's very frustrating because at times, especially whenever it rains, it's very difficult to use the rain, and aside that too, it causes a lot of traffic on the road. So at least I'm pleading to the authorities, they should come and do something about the road. It's very bad. It's very bad.
Right. So at the least opportunity, you have traffic forming around because of how bad this road is. We are still here on the Citizen Microphone in the Western region today, talking about a very terrible road between Kojo-Krom and Nkrofo Junction. So we still have more people sharing their thoughts on this, the nature of this road here, Chief. Into Morocco,
yeah, Aquano onye. Since getting to about 3 years now, the Mokwani or Saturday Damadi. Balankasa mete way down here. Way down here, na mete junction to here la. Ekwanya for the because of this road, Malankasa meka no swamp wape. Maka na ma park. Wade man for the contractors na there were ya contractors and waba obeja na wire da wo pe bia no wire and work because instructional oba no onko yi am the man no ye hu ne de sisi amoroko no ye mpanyimfo no pede wo bo ahien metua roadworthy metua insurance se metua roadworthy na insurance na se meta mo so na se merenew a posifo wa attackam do dem ka yedem ko renew na se mekwa renew na se metua da menyama na se wo wie na se kwan no wan ya na abasam na man ne mu mpanyimfo no wapede woka na posifo so a wogina ha anofa no so ebre authority na wotum wotwe wode man mpanyimfo de ekwan na wo bebe ye patrol wodo no ekwan no wa say nti won bere new man wankasa ho life mpo onye save da madin na wo ye wo honom no posifo no wo hu won kan wo hwe nti each other a posifo na wogina hanim de no wo ya wo de ekwan no wa say na wotum wo patronize wodo de wo save your life but at the same time wo save your life no so wo de aloko at risk or send our person here John one regard the Guan on a saving yano. So be come to number Guan, let me be save Mua, a Guan Yanti, Mudua, Obotua home. This is a pedicatcher and paying for Western region. So contract now what the Bamano. So on to me, Yaquan, one from a foreigner. No, Yaquan man. Natural be on time because traffic's here. A Wofian part did it dog or do a hanum no, I say. And two more so armed robbers no war patronize another year. Ordinary people in the world room. Ambulance nama would work him. Emma would just would two one answer into one by a man.
So what he is basically saying is that he has a car, he's been driving on this road, but because of the nature of the road, his sump has been destroyed. And that has resulted in him having to park his car. He says he doesn't understand why this road should be like this for all these years with nothing at all being done. He has seen contractors on the road and they don't do any meaningful work on it. He says if it's going to be a problem that the Ghanaian contractor cannot do anything on the road should be given to a foreign contractor who can really do something on the road. He's accusing the police for mounting checkpoints here during the night. He says he doesn't know the sort of reports they take to the authorities about the road. And therefore, if the road is not good, why do you still mount barriers here in the night to check cars? He's accusing them of also not acting. He feels it is long overdue that the government has to work. He's appealing to government to intervene quickly to have this road fixed. So we are still talking to people on the street of Takrady, especially where this road is so deteriorated. This is a citizen microphone, and our chief here will speak to our chief.
Oh, Boko chief.
Me who da kali ade fanchen
no me say why no uja for me for ma na tisa me da ha ma de chi because ma me dwo me kal over be we be gina ma wo sima wa ka me for ho da no me nya ho kwakra mpe tisa me ja ka no ma kofi na ye wo mani me na obenda ma na ye je fain nti ame ma ho de o ye kase because am ye drive ni me so akwani na me for da me je ma la nkaka ka me gidi nti pen for Western region ha no wo mo hen because obenda ma wo ma pen ni sesifo because I am called Accra. Na enkoto Accra if you find ejul Kasoa na adewal kwe enko hudama di bo ho akufo adu sunu ntumi fi Accra no mba mba o mesi kwani mahen nti most of them na chere yempen fo wo mani mu no wo Western region no anwa na wodi ahwembo because man na makọ de bia mkọ Accra mekali de bia na Accra kwani do menjul Kasoa wa mfo nkwa aka mko hu de amro kesi bi da ho a taxi ana car wa keke mu ho nti mu hu de na chere Western region penfo no anwa na wo mbo hen because wo bo hen na chere ma de ye hu no ha even kwa no Cape Coast ya ampo ye wo MP minister na ade wo ho anso enko nkoto de ma de bo ho nti Western region ha de yempen no I want one boy and one soul one kaka one boy and all the my bread because so
what he's basically saying is that he had to use the other lane because when he got here he realized there was a car which was stuck in the water and he couldn't have driven through it, so he had to come by the other side. He says this has been here for a very long time with no action taken to correct it, and he thinks that you won't go to the capital Accra to see anything like this. and he's blaming the leaders of the Western region for not showing leadership in solving this, and that's why we still have this problem here. He says the president himself cannot move to deal with this. It is the leaders of the region, the regional minister, and the MPs who have to try to solve this. He thinks it has been long overdue. This is still the Citizen microphone here on the AM show. Well, whilst talking about this, I've been joined here by a renowned social commentator in this part of the country, Charles Mintaba. He's an educationist, but he's been in the media space and talking about social matters for a very long time. Charles, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Kojo. Now, thank you so much. We are grateful the microphone is on us this time. Maybe that will be the panacea to this problem. Kojo, this is a very strategic route. If you are coming from Nkrofo Junction and you are heading your way to Sekendi, you ought to use this route. If you are coming from Sekendi College, the only thing you can do is to dodge and go towards Sekendi. This road is so strategic that you can't avoid it. Just this morning, a car was locked here. Just some few hours ago, we had a car stuck here. My question is, it has been 3 years now. You ask yourself whether this part of the road, do people pay roadworthy certificate? That's the question we answer. Or for 3 years now, I don't know what will let us put some emergency on this road unless we have a by-elections. Probably there are two things that the citizens can do to have that: a demonstration and a by-election, where people who matters will think that, oh, if the people have been getting worried about this road, then let's do it. If not, all calls, all attempts to allow people to understand that the nature of this road have led to people parking their vehicles. I know vehicles and boat drivers, you tell them, they said, if it is this road, I won't use this road. That is what they do to the citizen. That is why I say that what at all is the problem? That we cannot have an emergency situation. Kojo, we can do very good roads such as a bypass elsewhere. But if the inner roads are not well developed, definitely it's none. And interchange is good for a country. But if the inner roads that make people drive to their work and from work easily are not well developed, we still have a problem. If you look at this particular route, we ask ourselves, don't we have engineers in this city? What at all is the problem? That we cannot stop all things and manage it. There is somebody who feels that, yes, we can have an interchange. Until this road is fixed, he doesn't see that we have done something. So for me, to a large extent, I'm happy your microphone is here today. Probably this is our last resort. This is our last resort because calls to allow people to understand that this is creating problem for us. Anytime you want to pass here with your car, you get worried. People pass here, they will have to. We are even of the view that there should be a washing bay over there and a washing bay at the other side because of the nature of this road. We even need more washing bays than filling stations because of this particular road has become a thing god that we don't know what kind of shrine we can go to allow people to come to people's mind to say these potholes must be filled. Kojo,
so if the president, yes, the roads minister,
that's right,
are watching you now, what will be your message to them?
What I would say is that, yes, if the magic wand they've used to give a transcript of roads they've done in this country, this particular road is so dear to we citizens in the Western region. Yes, of course, if the road minister is giving a presentation in Parliament now about roads in the Western region, he will mention an interchange. But as I said, an interchange is good, but the inner roads are equally good. Kojo, what is it that if you buy a flat screen for your children and they are hungry in the room, do they watch it with empty stomach? We are saying that what facilitates our movement to work is this particular route. Is the inner roads. There are similar roads in this region that is having this nature. And we are asking questions. For me, if the president and the road minister, they are listening, whatever is the problem that this road cannot be fixed, they should surprise the people of Western region. That at least this is what we're, because people have lost hope that there's nothing that can be done. But for me, if they are listening, and I know there are times the president comes, sometimes they may not use him to pass here, they will let him pass through Sekendi to avoid this road. It is about time leaders of this region will allow the president to pass. Maybe that will do the magic. Let us not wait for this to create problem, for people to go and cry in accident scene. We can avoid this thing. This thing can be fixed. If we can build an interchange in this region, we can fix this road.
Well, and that's my colleague Samuel Odotobri taking the citizens' microphone to the Western region. That's not all. We have more coming your way shortly when we take that same microphone across some of the highways here in the national capital as we continue to assess the impact of last weekend's flooding. And we'll bring you up to speed with that. My colleague Michael Papani Ashale will be bringing us the latest, but that will happen after this short break. Please stay. And thanks for staying with us here on the AM show on the JoyNews channel. It's time now for us to take the citizens' microphone once more to Kasoa, where we understand that residents there are recovering from the flooding which occurred or happened over the weekend. My colleague Michael Papani Ashale is somewhere around the toll booth, Kasoa toll booth, to just give us an impact assessment of what has been happening there. Michael, if you can hear me, good morning. And well, I shouldn't have said good morning anyway, particularly for those who are within the area and telling you all the stories about how they were affected by the flooding over the weekend. Tell us more about
Central region. But that is not the case today. It is a single lane into Central region, a single lane out from Kasoa all the way to Accra. This is not the situation across the entire stretch of the N1, but just apart from the toll booth all the way to the West Hills Mall, this is what you are likely to find. The reason lies on the other side of this stretch of the road. We'll try to find some drivers and talk to them. Definitely how disturbing this is for them, especially on a Monday morning. We understand this is because of the rains. We'll get to find out why exactly they are blaming the rains for such a situation here. If only we can find some of them who stop eventually to talk to us at the end of the day. Bossman, oh, difficult to get to him, or maybe he may pass. Let's try and find some other drivers on this stretch to see exactly what the situation is for them. But not far from here, the reality of the situation that we have here is happening there. So probably walk you through it. It rained on Saturday and mud together with silt collected on the other half of the road. The whole of Sunday, nothing happened about it. Drivers had to struggle to pass through the water that collected there again and the mud. Monday morning, something different is happening just on the other side. We'll try to cross and get to the other end. It's becoming very difficult to get some of the commuters here. Let's try to go the other way and see and paint a picture of what is happening here. So just here, I spoke about mud here is all here. The reason the traffic on the road, if you are experiencing it, very unusual, is because of this mud that is sitting right here in the middle of this stretch, not far from the West Hills Mall, and also just before you get to the toll booth. So a lot of silt from Saturday's downpour right into Sunday. This is exactly what you are seeing, the silt sitting in the middle of the stretch. Some of the drivers and commuters I spoke to earlier tell me it was worse off than what you are seeing now. But at least some relief from the Ghana Police Service together with the MTTD folks who are here trying to salvage the situation to help ease the traffic. But probably between now and an hour or two time, commuters will have to bear with the traffic, the killing traffic that you have to sit in, hours of sunshine as well. I'll try to get closer to them to find out exactly the progress of the work. What did they meet here when they came here earlier? You can still see the water. Not far from here, and we'll show you when we get in front, that this is supposed to be a drain. For a highway, there's a very big drain here, but you can see the water stagnant, filled with silt, and some of it still sitting here. A lot of work, I must say, has been done by this vehicle, this heavy-duty machine here, trying to free this stretch of the road of silt. We'll try to get closer to the folks from the police department who are here to make sure that the drivers, one, are complying, and two, they are working as fast as possible to make sure that this does not continue before midday. We'll try to get closer to some of them to find out the solution here. Well, I'm told this is not the first time it's happening, that every single time there's a downpour, this is what drivers, commuters would have to endure, would have to go through every day in order until the water recedes, or hopefully the sun shines so hard that it bakes this mud here, making it more trouble at least for some time, and definitely have to walk through. Let me get closer to the folks from the police department here who try to let me understand, give us an appraisal of the situation. Commander, let me get closer to. Please you get closer to us. I want you to be a bit in the action as well. So, you since when did you come? First, let me ask your name. Identify yourself for us.
I am DSP Adam Kwajikum, Wager Unit MTTD Commander.
So, how long ago since you came here? What time did you get here?
I got here at 6:15.
6:15 in the morning?
Yeah.
What was the situation?
The situation was normal, except the road was somehow going one way, small, little by little.
So when you got here, there were vehicles on this stretch?
Yeah.
And how were they faring? I mean, is it usual for this part of the stretch to be having that sort of traffic when you got here?
Yeah, it's not usual. It's not usual at all.
So what's the situation on a normal day over here?
The normal day, there is a free flow of traffic, and no one has to wait maybe just 10 seconds. It is flow. If there is no problem on the road, it flows.
So you've been telling me before we started talking that this is not the first time it's happening. How long, have you witnessed this happen on this stretch of the road in terms of the silt sitting on the road hours after the rains?
You are a witness. I'm also a witness. Once you travel this area during rainy season, you are aware, I'm aware, that it has been there for long. I need not to talk before you accept it.
So off the top of your mind, what would you say the problem is? Why do we have this?
Well, when it rains, I think the debris gather itself to come and swallow the road. And that is all the point. And according to the contractor I met on the site, they said they have a manhole somewhere just beside the right side. And when it rains, some of the debris come inside and they desilt it. And that thing has not been done. That is why it is causing problem all the time. Other than that, we'll be having water on the road, which of course is normal.
So what exactly are you trying to do with the machine that you've brought here? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, the machine is clearing the debris. That is the sand and the water that has swallowed the road.
Okay. So if you just join us, this is JoyNews. We are here at the Kasoa, on the Kasoa Road around Wager, before you get to the toll booth, the Kasoa toll booth. And just before you also get to the Western Mall, this is where we sit in between the stretch of the road that is covered with silt, covered with mud, and originating from the weekend's downpour hours of rains. And this is the aftermath of it. On Sunday and the early hours of Monday morning, drivers and commuters have to endure traffic because you have to be careful whilst you're using this stretch of the road. But probably some respite for them, as you see folks from the MTT. We just spoke to one of the folks from the police station very close to us who is trying to salvage the situation here. There's a contractor site. We'll try to speak to them as well. He tells me, at least for as long as he can remember, and earlier he gave me a year, that 20 years, give or take, that this problem has been happening here. You can still see some work being done. Just the other side of this lane is a 2-lane road going to the central region and converted to a 1 in and a 1 out. Drivers ordinarily on this lane, this is a 3-lane road, has now been cordoned off to pave way for the works that you are seeing being done here. Of course, you have some recalcitrant drivers who try to veer off the instructions that have been given and trying to use the place. That would definitely make it difficult for this heavy machinery to do the work that it's doing. So some more visuals you can see.
Colleague Michael Papani Ashali there, obviously telling us about the situation somewhere around the Kasoa toll booth, and clearly an indication that indeed Accra is now recovering from what we witnessed over the weekend. Some officials of the MTTD there, together with the local assembly, trying as much as possible to clear the debris and also the silt, which has actually covered some parts and portions of the networks connecting to some other parts of Accra, and so we'll be bringing you some more updates as and when we have them. But for now, thanks for staying with us on the AM show. When we return as well, we'll talk about some more issues. We'll take you to the Central Kofi Akpafu Lulubi areas as well. They've resurrected the age-old concern about their inability to elect a member of parliament. It's coming up strongly. We'll talk about that shortly, right here on the AM show. And you're welcome back to the AM show. Now, you recall that last year, a group of aggrieved indigents of Central Kofi Akpafu and Lulubi areas petitioned Parliament over their exclusion from the 2020 parliamentary elections. The group is mounting pressure on the legislative chamber to try as much as possible to get a representative for the area, that's the South, Central Kofi Akpafu and Lulubi areas, as soon as possible. But that hasn't happened, and we know that the group is readying itself as Parliament prepares to sit once more. They are going back to the House to demand some answers. Joining us now is Dr. J.K. Adai, co-chairman of the group of the Central Kofi Akpafu Lulubi indigents. He's joining us via Zoom. Thank you so much, sir, for your time here on the AM show. So let's talk about your concerns. Last year, we know that it wasn't only in the Parliament House that you petitioned, but then some other stakeholders as well. Now that we know at least you're not getting any favorable answers from Parliament, let's first of all talk about, for instance, the Electoral Commission, which you also petitioned with regard to your concerns. What updates do you have from them on the demands you're making? Dr. J.K. Adai, let's do that once more. If you can hear me now, I'm just asking about, just before we go to Parliament, the concerns that you have with Parliament and what they need to do. We know that also the Electoral Commission, for instance, was petitioned as part of the moves to mount pressure and to get representation in Parliament. Have you heard from the EC ever since December when you first petitioned all stakeholders on this matter?
Good morning to your cherished listeners, and I will say that we have been in touch with EC over 2 years now. They have never responded to any of our letters. Neither had it even gotten to us. Many a time we only get some news in the news portal. That is all. They have never even communicated with us.
So what do you consider yourselves to be now? The Guan district, or perhaps we have a new constituency? But I mean, what's really your status now as residents of Central Kofi Akpafu and Lulubi?
As you are aware, we don't belong to any community. I think we are the only community in Ghana who are without any representation in Parliament. And actually, we don't even know where we belong to. We are actually an island within Ghana. That is what it is.
And now there's a fine opportunity for you to make a strong case again. Parliament is resuming in a few days from now. We understand that your group will be engaging the House once more on your demands. Tell us more about that.
You see, what happened is that, last year, I think exactly a year ago, we paid a courtesy call on the Honorable Speaker. to highlight the challenges we are going through. And then he did assure us that, yes, we should bring a petition to Parliament. Since they are also another arm of government, they would be able to resolve our issue. 1 year on, I think we haven't had anything substantial from the Parliament. And that is why we had actually written to the Speaker to remind him that, yes, they should actually, as a matter of urgency, look into our case. And if you read our letter, we drew attention of the Parliament to the fact that I think almost at the same time, 499 students of the Ghana Law School were also denied admission in school, in the school. And they did petition the Parliament to have them reinstated. And it almost at the same time, but you realize that less than a few weeks, the grievances of those aggrieved students were addressed. So we were wondering why 1 year on the Parliament had not acted speedily on our issue. So that was what informed us to remind the Honorable Speaker that this is our position. They must act now because we are citizens of Ghana and we are also paying all the taxes and we are, law-abiding citizens.
Well, even before that engagement happens, some have been proposing what they term a lasting solution to your concerns. The fact that we have just 2 years away from now and an opportunity to resolve the issue completely when we go for another turn of general elections. So why not wait until 2024 for a speedy or, sustainable resolution to the concerns that you're raising?
I think that is a rather unfortunate suggestion because, you see, the law states that every Ghanaian with sound mind has the right to be represented or his voice to be heard. So I don't think because of somebody's personal interest, over 20,000 inhabitants of a community should be disenfranchised. If I want to throw more light into this issue, the EC has no mandate to disenfranchise anybody. You understand? They exceeded their mandate. And I believe that the whole country is now sitting down looking unconcerned. You understand? Because the mandate of the EC is to organize elections and declare results. There is nowhere in the Constitution that EC has been mandated to look into your face and say, oh, your face is green, blue, yellow, so you cannot participate or you will not have representation in Parliament. And that is the core issue that we all need to address. Because if you remember the president during his inaugural address, he said we should all be participants, or we should actively participate in the democratic process and not be spectators. And here we are, 12 hours to a general election, EC sits in her office in her comfort and declared that, okay, these particular people should not have representation in Parliament, and we are all quiet. Is that fair? And we cannot wait until 2024, except EC or the whole world wants to admit that we are not part and parcel of Ghana.
Is it the case that you've lost completely hope in the Electoral Commission? The fact that they've given you assurances, they're working around the clock to deal with the issue?
Let me just throw more light into this issue. Somewhere in 2028, when EC from nowhere recommended Akpafu Lolobi or South people to go and participate in a referendum, during the creation of the OT region, if my memory serves me right, Article 5.2 was what the president was using to create a new region. And 5.2 specifically says that there must be a petition or a demand before you can be moved from your current location to any other place. And then Akpafu and Lolobi never petitioned. So that was on the 17th of September 2018, a powerful delegation led by the paramount chief of Lolobi traditional area and two other chiefs, the paramount chief of Akpafu traditional area and one divisional chief we went to meet the East Chair to demand why we didn't petition. Why should you lump us into people who are supposed to participate in the referendum? And the EC Chair told us that yes, her hands were tied. She couldn't do otherwise. So we should go and see the president or Honorable Dan Bochwe. You understand? So what we did was we followed. So you could see that if you go to the genesis of the current impasse that we are facing now, or our disenfranchisement, it started from somewhere. You see, there are some invisible hands pulling strings left and right. This is exactly what happened. So when we went to meet Honorable Dan Bochwe, that was on the 11th of November, and then when the delegations were introduced to him, he openly apologized to our paramount chiefs and said, he is very sorry. It is now too late because he mentioned some two names that they came to impersonate the two traditional areas. So we demanded that if there is an impersonation, why can't you reverse it? And he said, it's too late, so they cannot do anything. So you realize that during the referendum, at least, our people never participated. There was a boycott. Over 95% of the people boycotted the election, the so-called referendum.
Right.
So you could see that these are the genesis of the problem.
We've gone past that now. You're deciding to resort to Parliament as part of the solution. And just from what you're telling us, you're heading into a meeting in one of these days with the Speaker of Parliament. Some say we're also heading in for a constitutional deadlock. The fact that the Electoral Commission remains an independent body as stipulated within the Constitution of the Republic. So Parliament may not necessarily be the solution to this problem. What do you say to that?
You see, if you, even though EC is an independent body, they also work under rules and laws of this country. Because if my memory serves me right, any referendum, any commission of inquiry, there is an avenue or a window of redress. And it is stated in the Constitution that if there is any adverse finding on any group or individuals during in any commission of inquiry, you have the right to petition or appeal. And the findings of every commission of inquiry is adjudged to be as a ruling of the High Court. So what happened was that we took advantage of that window of opportunity, and since the 19th of September 2019, we were in the appeals court, and all that needed to be done is the court registry to compile the records and the findings and then sit on it. And as we speak, the appeal courts have refused to hear our case. You see, because of this, because we engage the services of one of the best lawyers or constitutional lawyers in town, Martin Pebu. He is handling that case. When we went to the High Court to challenge that order, the registrar of the court is now telling the court that it is not his duty to compile those records of the proceedings, which is very strict. And as of now, you see, we went through the normal process. We went to the judiciary. The judiciary failed us. We personally appealed to the Chief Justice to address the issue. To date, we have not heard from him. So that was why we appealed. We had also appealed to the executive, the presidency. That one also fell on deaf ears. And the judiciary has also refused to hear our case. You understand? So the only arm of government which is left to appeal to was the parliament. That was why we went to pay a courtesy call on the Speaker of Parliament. And yes, it is within his jurisdiction to also address our issues, because the same EC also comes to the same Parliament to seek permission to lay any CI or any constitutional instrument. So I don't think Parliament, it was a wrong place we have been. And
Doc,
the institute doesn't work in isolation.
Right.
Yeah.
Doc, let's be clear on your demands again.
Come again?
Let's be clear on your demands again. Is it a call for a new constituency, or perhaps your demand is to go back to your mother constituency, which happens to be in the Volta region, Hohoi constituency? Is that where you want to go back to?
Yeah, that is right, because from beginning I told you that Lolobi and Akwafu traditional areas never petitioned to be considered to be part of OT region. So, and then we have used the court, and the court have refused to even hear our case. So our clear demand is that, yes, we belong to Hokwe constituency, and that is where we are at home.
Yeah, but now,
and then,
speaking,
and secondly,
but speaking,
you remember
just hold on for me. Just hold on for me.
On the 9th of March this year.
Doc, if you just hold on for me.
Okay.
I mean, speaking in terms of the administrative region within which you find yourself, your group, I mean, SAL, Santo Kofi Ekpafu Lolobi areas, you are now finding yourselves within the OT administrative area. Technically speaking, it will be impossible to have a Volta regional constituency in another region. That's where the deadlock is, isn't it?
No, but you see, because on the other hand, we don't belong there, because the constitution was very clear that before you be moved into a new region, certain conditions or criteria must be met. And here we have a case where Lolobi and Akwafu never petitioned to be in OT. So whatever they have done, it is wrong, and constitutionally cannot also hold water. You understand?
Are you now coming to terms? Are you now coming to terms with the fact that perhaps you have lost that beautiful opportunity of making a statement when you had the opportunity to participate in the referendum? You didn't do that, and partly you're paying for the sins of the past.
No, it is not so, because people who were supposed to partake in the referendum are the people who petitioned. You understand? Because, you see, we are not in an authoritarian state that somebody will just come and say, community A, B, C, D, go and do. That is why the president used, in his own wisdom, used Article 5.2. And so if you don't petition, why should you go and participate in the decision? So I think
but then
that
same constitution gives the powers to the president to commission or put in place a commission to inquire whether or not we need a new region or not. He can act in that manner, isn't it?
Yes, and the same constitution also empowers anybody on whom adverse findings have been made to appeal. And so I may ask, why is it that, the courts are refusing to even address our issues? Because it is our right to appeal against any wrong finding. Is that not it? Because the Justice Provost Commission is not the absolute power. Because if you go into the nitty-gritty of it, page 91 of the Justice Provost Commission report is saying that we, the people of the Northern Territory or Volta region, decide to put one single application to be considered as part of OT. No, because what pertains in Ketekrachi cannot be automatically true for the people in the southern area of Volta region. You understand? So the Justice Provost Commission itself had its own problems, and that is why we had resort to the courts, and the courts have refused to even give us a hearing. That is where the problem is. You understand?
It's like a broken record now. It's like a broken record now. But at least, if the Chief Justice were to be listening to you now, I hope he's listening now, or perhaps any of his assigns, what would be your message to the Chief Justice on your countless demands and appeal for him to at least listen to the case that you're making?
Yeah, we will just appeal to him because we are Ghanaian citizens, and it is our right for our voices to also be heard. Because if I will recall, on the 23rd of December 2020, yes, the people there was a court case that was sent to Ho. The same Attorney General issued a certiorari and pulled that case out of Ho within a few days, and the case was settled in the Supreme Court. So we believe that the people of South also deserve to be heard. I mean, he should just allow the judicial process to work, because the duty of a registrar of the High Court or the Supreme Court is to compile processes and records for an appeal. And as I speak, that thing had not been done. And when we appealed, they said, no, it is it is not the duty of the registrar. So if it's not the duty of the registrar to compile the records and procedures, then whose duty is it? Because the registrar is being paid for that job. And secondly, I want just to remind you that on the 9th of March this year, Attorney General went to the Parliament, the same Parliament we have appealed to, and said that, yes, it was wrong for the 7th Parliament to create a new district less than a month to a general election. So that was why he was saying that that district must be annulled and then what you called it, a rerun of elections so that South can also participate in whichever constituency they deem it fit. That is the cause. If Attorney General herself had realized, because it was wrong for anybody just a month to a general election to go and dissolve this and create a new district, which you know you cannot even create a constituency for. So that was part of our demand to the Parliament.
Anyway, I guess Kofi Adams will be smiling at that last point you're raising there. But Dr. J.K. Adai, co-chairman of the Central Kofi Akpafulolobi Areas, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And thank you too for staying with us here on the AM show. When we return, you have your say as well. We'll check out social media, what many of you have been talking about on the stories that we brought to you, particularly the flooding situation here in Accra. We'll do that, plus your calls right here on the AM show. Please stay. Well, and thanks for staying with us here on the AM show on the Joy News channel. Well, it's time for you to have your say. We'll be activating the phone line shortly, but why don't we turn to social media? First of all, get reactions on the question, very controversial question we are asking today. But first, I need to announce the phone lines, 0302-211-691 or 2. So it's once more 0302-211-691 or 2. We'll be displaying that shortly on the screens for you, so you can also join us via phone. But first, here's the question. Just listen to it. How much attention do you pay to the weather forecast from the Ghana Meteorological Agency? That's the question we're asking. And you know, a lot of Ghanaians have expressed doubts about the forecast from GMET. They're assuring us that what it is that they have is accurate. So, but what do Ghanaians actually think about this, and how much attention as an individual do you pay to this? So here are some of the interesting comments here. Someone is saying, and it's from Osman. He says, for me, I don't have money to pay for that thing or the system had. Well, Osman, I don't think necessarily you're going to pay for that information. And well, if you have to pay something, maybe it will be about data for downloading the app that you need to use. And then we have one also coming through from Dramani Hudu Pitropa. He says that 0.9% attention because they see nothing coming until it happens. So that's the concern we're getting from Dramani this morning. Let's take more of it. Al-Hassan Abdul Wahab says, do they really exist? That's the question he's asking. Well, we just spoke to one of their officials this morning, and then he continues to say that, for me, I don't have any idea. I have more pressing issues than this probability weather forecasting. So that's a cynic view there. So Moses Ohiming is also here. Moses Ohiming says that cynicism is killing this country. Things may be bad, but let's appreciate good things and encourage people when they do their possible best. So at least a word of encouragement going out to the Ghana Meteo Agency. Great work they're doing there. And Maufe is also here joining us on Facebook. He says that 100% attention, so he's paying attention, full attention. He continues to indicate that Meteo is doing their best and they are highly needed. Unfortunately, the policymakers are careless about this very important institution and pathetic country, he says. Well, I guess we're looking at the flood and its impact on our communities. It's now time for us to be taking that more seriously. Let's do this very last one before I take your calls this morning on the AM show. It's from Lamech Osei Redu. He says that I listen to them every morning, and he goes ahead to talk about the FM station in the central region whose giving that information, and then it continues to read that it helps me a lot, but when in the Ashanti region, I don't hear them forecasting the weather on any radio platform. So, well, the disparities here and there, but why don't we take some of your calls and also hear from you on this. So the numbers are on your screen right there, 0302 211 691. It's time to hear from you. Join us with your thoughts and your views on all of the discussions that we're having this morning. We're talking about SAL as well, so don't forget about that. So let's do the very first one here. It's coming through from Abdul. Abdul is giving us a call all the way from Tamale. Abdul, how is Tamale this morning? Abdul, if you can hear me, how is Tamale this morning, and what do you have to share with us? Okay, so we've lost Abdul, and I also need to indicate that if you give us a call, try and turn down the volume on the TV set. Anthony is joining us from the Volta region, Panduk to be precise. Anthony, what do you have to share with us?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Anthony. Please.
Yeah, what I have this morning is it's very pity for those who live in Accra at the low areas. Hello, good morning.
Yes,
yeah.
Anthony, I can hear you. So don't
saying
listen to the
those who live in
feedback
Accra
on
in
the
low
TV.
areas. My advice to them is they shouldn't wait until rainy season comes to enter their home before they will be struggling. So they should try as much as to find high areas to have a place when the rainy season comes, they move to that places. Otherwise, the rain will kill them before they realize. Thank you.
Interesting comment there. We hope that no one dies out of this. Let's do more. Abin Dayo is joining us from Kumasi, the Ashanti regional capital. What do you have to share with us this morning?
Yeah, good morning. Actually, when you look at the weather activities, in my view, actually, it's not something new. Yeah, when you look at the amount of rain that falls, in my view, it is not new. But you see, we have blocked the ways of the rain. Or we have blocked the ways of the rainwater with buildings, among many other things. So whenever the rain falls, the water doesn't get the access to move through the path that it is supposed to move. And when we block it and it's not able to move through the path that it is supposed to move, where has to move? Then it has to move anywhere, whether into our homes, our shops, our offices, among other places. And when you also look at medicine, with my common knowledge, I learned that when the rain falls, or with the common sense, when the rain falls,
right,
the water is supposed to be absorbed into the land. But we have used tiles and cement, and we have tiles every place. So even when rain falls, the water cannot absorb into the land.
Okay then. Abindayo, I'm sure that sometime tomorrow as well, we'll give you another chance to also join us and share much more of your views. Evans is joining us from Accra. Evans, just before your comments as well, there's an interesting one coming through from Mina Mani. She says that Ghana Meteo Agency, the same agency that said we should expect little rains this year, is that the agency to trust? I guess that's the question she's asking. Evans, what do you have to share with us this morning?
Good morning. And what I have to share is, you know, in Accra, most of our gutters, our draining system are very few and they are small. So sometimes when they rain fall, just to pass through, they find it difficult. So instead of passing through the gutter, they bypass their way to their individual houses. And sometimes everything, the weather itself, it has changed naturally. Because in May, we don't experience heavy rainfall like this. So sometimes the Meteorological Agency may give you a day that, oh, maybe the rain will fall today or tomorrow. Unexpectedly, it will change. Because naturally, our attitude have contributed to what we are facing today. Have you seen what the river is going through? A lot of rubbish, we just drink it and we just damage it anyhow.
Okay,
that contributes to what we are facing now.
Okay, from Accra, let's go to Cape Coast. Kenneth, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
So, Kenneth, what's your concern this morning?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think that this concern that is just being raised is not just something that we have to just give a blind eye about. If you had any representative here in Cape Coast on this ended flooding, you realize that Cape Coast had a huge case also doing around town where the fisher folks are. The rain gets exposed and children are being affected all the time. And sometimes you see children trying to go on an errand and all the time they just get missing by this rain. Like the rain just get them off the, they don't have any idea where they have to pass, I mean, in terms of their location. And sometimes what I ask myself is, how are the officials responding to this? Sometimes I just don't blame it on the meteorologist committee. I think that this boils down to the people who are in charge of giving permission to these what's it called, investors to build on our land.
All right.
You understand? When investors want to build, they go to these authorities to go and ask for permission, and bribery is a factor that is bringing all this about.
Okay.
They tell these people that, yo, you can't build here. And they just go behind the closed doors, give them money or give us the permission, we'll do it.
Right,
and they sign the records, they give to them. And at the end point, we are the ones who are being affected. This is a challenge that we have to stop. And we have to address very well. Look at what happened about 8 years ago. We all just woke up to a realization that the whole Accra has been flooded.
Yeah.
With gas explosion, with diesels, just all over everywhere. People lost their lives, properties were lost, serious investment got down the drain. And the officials who are in charge of giving permission for investors to build on this land are the ones who have to be blamed.
I get your point this morning, Kenneth. Thank you so much for joining us. So from Cape Coast, let's take you to Lagos. I hope it's Lagos in Nigeria. Ken is joining us. Ken, if it's in Nigeria, just confirm that for us, because here in Ghana as well, we have Dubai. So that's just by the way. But Ken, thanks for joining us. Share your concerns with us.
No, Legon.
Okay, so Ken is joining us from Legon. Yes, Ken.
I'm joining from Legon.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yes, Ken, let's hear you. Yes, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning to your viewers. This morning, our problem is about the exit point of our drainage system. Whenever it rains, the exit point of our drainage system is very small. And when it happens like that, the water keeps on piling from the exit point, forming backwards. And this is where it becomes a problem, because the side gutters always choke. So we'll be pleading with our engineers, when there are constructions to be done, they should do due diligence to make sure the exit points of our drainage system are very wide, just like you can see from the Odotobri drainage system. It's very big. But when you get to Kole Lagoon, the exit point is very small.
Okay, then. Ken joining us from Legon this morning. From Legon, Joshua is also joining us from Santa Maria. Joshua, were you affected by the flooding over the weekend?
Yes, please. Actually, what happened was, I just want to say, as it's raining heavily nowadays, the security services should also be active or something. Because just last Saturday, it was raining heavily around Pig Farm that side. And there was a fire in the church. So we tried calling 192, there was no answer. And we called 18555, and a gentleman answered. And I told him that, oh, there's a fire here. We tried calling 192. We're not getting them. He said, this is not fire service. We should find our way to meet fire service. And I was like, oh, boss, it's a fire. So if you can contact them to us, we'll be glad. He said, this is not fire service. So whatever I would do to get fire services number is up to me. And he hung up. I was like, wow. Because people can lose their life at that moment. So fire service came there after the youth and everyone turned the fire off. And they were like, if we call 192, we are calling the whole nation's fire service number. Meanwhile, they've not provided any numbers for each zone or each community. So I just want to say, if we call police for fire something, they should be able to link the nearest fire station to us. Yeah.
Okay then. And that's Joshua, our last caller from Santa Maria, also sharing his concerns with us. Well, here's definitely what you need to know. Water is life. Water actually regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. Awake is premium purified water treated through strict purification processes to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect size for every occasion, 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and also bags as well. We have the 750 ml for the heavy drinking and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. We also have introduced our special 19 liters jar for offices and homes as well. So now you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. And so you need to grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. And remember as well that for every bottle you purchase, an amount is obviously donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center, and it's produced by the Kasoa Limited as well. So for bulk purchases, don't forget that you can always call them 0262 351 251. It's 0262 351 215. On those numbers, I'm sure that you'd be able to reach them. Now, do you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Are you a young entrepreneur actually engaged in manufacturing, information and communication technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and creative art, horticulture, and medicinal plants as well? You don't need to pay any income tax, obviously, when you are within that age bracket for the first 5 years of operation. A young entrepreneur engaged in businesses, in any business at all, can enjoy an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. So that's Accra and Tema, 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, 12.5%, and outside other regional capitals as well is at 10% rate. 3 northern regions, it's rated at 5%. And for further clarity and information, you can always get in touch with the Ghana Revenue Authority offices across the country, and they will definitely be at your service. And we also need to say a belated happy birthday to Dr. Rainfall Edu Jenfi of the public health. You are actually a public health physician, and you're working at the National AIDS STI Control Program at Kolibo. So we wish you the very best of the day, and it's just the start of the week. Obviously, there's a lot of blessings coming your way. So, on that note, we draw the curtains on the AM show here on the JoyNews channel. It's been a wonderful time with you. We'll see you next time.